Part 226. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2257. After the first strong man burst out with power, Jia Yan felt that this guy was actually a fighting strong man at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. He was sent to hunt down an insignificant guerrilla warrior, but a fighting type actually came? This is too flattering to me. Jia Yan was slightly startled, but then showed no fear. He had encountered the existence of fighting types in the first battle he had seen in Biostar. He was scared at first, thinking that the strong men in Biostar were so powerful, but now he saw that fighting types were still in the minority. Moreover, his combat type existence has defeated many, and he is not afraid at all at the moment. "It's you that damn it?" Jia Yan sneered. Since it is a combat type existence, it is not a big pity to use explosives on it. Who? An explosive flew out leisurely. The strong man had obviously known the information about Jia Yan's explosive for a long time, and his face changed wildly and he stepped back. The famous Battle of Ice and Snow City was also the battle that made Jia Yan famous. His explosive properties are known to almost everyone who knows him. The explosion was too powerful. Unfortunately, their understanding of this explosive is still somewhat limited. Puff. What? Will you speed up? Or even turn? Not good. The strong man's expression changed drastically, and then he tried to turn around, but it was already too late. Boom. The earth-shattering explosion sound appeared under the gaze of the powerful enemy soldiers around. Severely injured. A fighting creature at the top of the middle-level galaxy was seriously injured like this? Is this Jia Yan? Terrible. It's too scary. This person is much scarier than the legend. We obviously have information about him, but he can actually injure one of our mid-level peak fighting beings in this situation under such circumstances. Could it be that his past combat effectiveness in the eyes of the public is still? Are you hiding something? The faces of the galaxy-level powerhouses who were besieged by the enemy changed. As galactic-level powerhouses, they are not the ones who fight uncertain battles. In fact, they were the subordinates of the Domain Lord-level being whose rescue failed that day. The subordinates of the Domain Master creature ambushed Jia Yan and the others, but what they never expected was that Jia Yan almost single-handedly turned the tide and almost annihilated the enemy army. After that, the Domain Lord personally rushed to help and failed to catch up with Jia Yan. Feeling deeply embarrassed, he gathered the remaining parties of that army, and then got the information about Jia Yan. His information is not confidential, and he can detect it as soon as he checks it. Therefore, in this incoming battle, although the Territory Lord had to personally deal with the powerful Territory Lord who controlled the base camp of the power, and it was difficult to come in person, he also ordered a force that was stronger than Jia Yan's troops. A huge enemy army came to encircle Jia Yan. But he may not have thought that Jia Yan, who seemed to be well understood by others, actually had other methods. In fact, there were many other methods of fighting power, especially the explosives, that had not been exposed. Ever since, in this first contact, the strong man who came to the top of the mid-level fighting-type galaxy suffered a setback. Hurry up and escort the Lord back, let's surround him and kill him. Clang. A strong man took advantage of Jia Yan not using the second explosive and flew to Jia Yan's side. He thought it was because Jia Yan couldn't control a lot of explosives at once, but he didn't know that Jia Yan deliberately let him get close. This is called virtual reality, which makes others unaware of his specific combat strength and fighting style. By causing the enemy to be careless, he can win the battle more easily. Anyway, Jia Yan was familiar with fighting. Even after arriving at Biostar, he pretended to be a grandson for a while and even admitted in his heart that he didn't seem to be that powerful. But in fact, Jia Yan was able to fight in the outside world. For a man who has become so powerful and has so much background, every advantage can easily be turned into a greater fighting method for him as long as he uses it. So he was actually destined from the beginning. As long as he pretended to be a grandson for a while, he would be able to become a powerful man in the future. Even after joining Biostar, Jia Yan has determined in his heart that his fighting ability is not too unique, but deep down, he has always believed in himself. Now is the time for him to reveal all his accumulations. When the two sides immediately clashed. Since the coming strong man said that the strong man who was seriously injured by Jia Yan's blow and exploded before was an adult, and his expression was full of a kind of anxiety that only small people have towards big people, Jia Yan judged that he is not a strong man of the same level. That's why he let him come to his side. As soon as the handover was made, Jia Yan knew that his judgment was correct. Under the azure defense of positive and negative forces, the positive and negative forces of his feet were extremely powerful. After the collision, his speed became twice as fast as usual, and then hit the opponent's attack weapon, knocking his entire body away. Ah! This guy's attack power is so extraordinary. Oh my god! The strong man had an ugly face and felt that Jia Yan was a very troublesome being. Behind him, the enemy invaders one after another also felt uncomfortable. Because Jia Yan's combat power seems to be stronger than his intelligence. Otherwise, with the number of people in their group, Jia Yan would be overwhelmed no matter what. But what they never expected was that in the first moment of the fight, one of them was seriously injured and the other was repulsed. Haha, these two were able to warm me up just now. What's wrong? Come on, everyone. Jia Yan smiled, chatting and laughing, looking at the strong men around him as the enemy troops approached. Although he didn't know that this army came to chase him, let alone that it was ordered by a territory lord to chase him, he did understand that this was an enemy army, and it seemed that it was I can handle it myself. That's enough. This place is still far away from the battlefield. If we win here, we won't worry too much about the enemy's main force coming to chase us. At worst, after winning, he can retreat calmly. As long as he wins one game, Jia Yan can use rest as an excuse and retreat as a matter of course. Speaking of which, I would also like to thank these troops who were chasing me like idiots. What are you afraid of? Kill. There are many of us. That's right, we still have two fighting experts at the top of the middle level of the galaxy. How can a creature of the same level defeat three of the same level? The blow just now must have consumed a lot of his energy. Superior. A group of enemy soldiers seemed to have lost their minds after Jia Yan taunted them, and they rushed forward one by one, motivating each other. In fact, it's not that they are stupid, but that this is a matter personally ordered by a territory lord. If they can't handle it well, won't they definitely be punished by that territory lord when they go back? For this group of ordinary strong soldiers, if there is no possibility of advancement in official career, it is better to give it a try. Besides, even if Jia Yan gave them a blow at the beginning, the overall strength of the combatants on both sides was still more than double theirs. In this case, they are not afraid that we will lose at all. However, they seem to be missing one piece of information, that is, Jia Yan's explosives did not consume their own energy as they thought. In fact, consumption does need to be consumed, but it is not consuming the current energy, but consuming the previous energy, which has been consumed long ago. Now that he has control of the explosives, he is pulling them to move, which requires a certain amount of brainwave power. Consume, otherwise there is no need to consume any brainwave power. Therefore, this group of enemy soldiers thought that as long as they swarmed up, they could drain Jia Yan's energy bit by bit. This is unlikely. As an evolved beast, Jia Yan's physique is not afraid of any attrition war. Bang! There was another collision. The three first-level beings of the galaxy jointly attacked, but they were knocked backwards by Jia Yan's front and back feet. Jia Yan's front and back strength legs were only barely able to collide with a combat-type existence before, and were even at a disadvantage. But now, after a period of accumulation, the power of Ice and Snow Stone in Ice and Snow City has been perfected. To make up for it, his pair of positive and negative power feet have already achieved greater strength. Against the three powerful beginners of the galaxy who joined forces to attack, and there may even be a combat-type existence in the basic level of the galaxy, they still defeated each other with one move. Amazing. He is actually such a terrifying and perfect combat type who can even fight in close combat. What on earth are those feet? Why doesn't it feel so powerful, but it hits so fast? A group of galaxy-class people surrounded Jia Yan, and each one felt a headache when looking at the guy surrounded by the circle. Originally, they wanted to end this battle like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves, and then go back to take credit, and even help the main battlefield in front of them, but now they see it. That's not the case at all. They put almost all their main forces here to fight Jia Yan alone. The other troops seemed to be in a state of panic for a moment. Although Jia Yan's deployment seemed to be ordinary masters, even in the small force of the galaxy, none of them were combat-oriented. In addition, Jia Yan was at the top of the intermediate galaxy. However, after the main force was held back by Jia Yan alone, there was no victory at all in other aspects. Feel. A few people are missing to hold him back. The others will deal with his subordinates first. As long as the other subordinates are dealt with, we can use weapon systems and human sea tactics to drag him to death. This Jia Yan will definitely be a danger on the future battlefield. If we don't kill him here, when he becomes a higher general in the Master's power, he will definitely bring huge losses to our coalition forces. We must kill him at all costs. Got him. These invading strongmen must have been fighting on the battlefield all year round. Seeing that the tactics to encircle and suppress Jia Yan could not be successful for a while, they immediately made other judgments. Oh? Do you want to leave? Since you are here to besiege me, how about you besiege me properly? Otherwise, I will be very lonely. Jia Yan smiled, and then one of the white ice and snow explosive stones that had been lingering around Jia Yan but had not been used again flew out. Be careful, this guy has accumulated strength again. For a moment, the group of beings besieging Jia Yan all screamed in surprise. Then, after flying in a circle, the ice and snow stone seemed to not find a suitable attacker. It returned to Jia Yan again and turned into a satellite, surrounding Jia Yan, and no longer exploded. Feel. The group of strong men around them felt sick for a moment. Just now, Jia Yan was targeting the group of strong men who wanted to leave. However, they were frightened by Jia Yan. None of the strong men dared to leave anymore. When they turned back, Jia Yan stopped attacking, scaring them so much. And the two fighting experts who were at the top of the middle level of the galaxy looked even more livid. They originally thought that they could quickly deal with Jia Yan and then support other parties, but after miscalculating Jia Yan's combat power, even their two combat-type existences were trapped in this battlefield. They were already confident that even if Jia Yan's explosives hit them, they might be injured but not killed. But the problem is that they don't want to be injured, just like the injured combat type, who now reluctantly leaves the main area of the battlefield. If you run back for treatment, you will have to wait until at least a long time before you can fight again. And if they fall into that state, will Jia Yan's side, which is eyeing the enemy, give them a chance to go back and heal? Maybe if they were injured, the entire force that came to besiege Jia Yan would be in danger. Guys, if this can't go on like this, let's use one of our trump cards. We don't want to kill or even injure him, we just need to hold him back for a while. We have time to kill his subordinates, and then it's this person's turn. It's Jia Yan. A strong fighting man looked around with a cold face, hoping that one of his subordinates would come forward and use their trump card to hold back Jia Yan. However, this trump card must not be offensive, because for a person who is weaker than Jia Yan, attacking Jia Yan's trump card will hardly cause huge trauma to Jia Yan, and may not even have the effect of delaying Jia Yan at all. This requires finding one or two strong ones with the ability to delay among the few strong ones to use their trump card. But the problem is that after using the killer weapon, their combat effectiveness will generally drop significantly. None of them can guarantee whether Jia Yan can survive if he uses explosives against these beings after using it. Ever since, there was a brief silence among the group of strong men surrounding Jia Yan. Haha, everyone, haven't you come up with a way to deal with me? Then I will take action. When Jia Yan's voice came out, the expressions of the group of besiegers changed. At this moment, a strong man stood up with gritted teeth. Let me do it. This is a mid-level strong man from the galaxy who has been wandering around the edge of the battlefield. He is not a fighting type, so he didn't intervene just now. He just struck a sudden blow to Jia Yan, which was also a headache for Jia Yan. High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2258. Now, I didn't expect that it would be this strong man who would stand up. He probably also felt that he was useless on this battlefield. Seal it to me. Jia Yan recognized this strong man as soon as he used his moves. This guy has a bulging tail. I always felt like it looked like something just now, but now I see it is the silk sac of a spider. As soon as the silk thread was spit out, it quickly turned into a large net floating in the air. I don't know what mechanism it used. In short, it flew in front of Jia Yan, and was about to cover Jia Yan's entire body. What a powerful sealing move. If I were covered, I would be unable to move for a while. Jia Yan didn't dare to be hit by this move. In fact, even though he had been blocking so many strong men with his own body, at least 6 or 7 of them, he was not careless at all. This is because every strong man present must have his own trump card. With similar moves, even if he has explosives, positive and negative yin and yang, and feet, etc., he may still be injured. Even death. The strong players of North Star are never too weak. It is possible for any one of them to suddenly use some moves to restrain you and kill you. But now, Jia Yan's expression changed drastically as this trapped man used his trump card. Then, he suddenly retreated, trying to get out of the blockade of this move. But beside him, there was another strong creature, who suddenly used his offensive trump card. If he had used his offensive trump card just now, Jia Yan would not be afraid at all, because this strong man is just as it's just a beginner level. Even if he uses his trump card, it will only be a casual blow from a peak mid-level star in the galaxy, which is not something to be afraid of at all. But the problem is that this attack happens to be in front of Jia Yan's retreat, so if Jia Yan dodges, he will be covered by the silk net. Humph, I'll go up and see what you can do to me with this move. Jia Yan's face turned cold, and then he ran directly into the killer attack of this first-level galaxy powerhouse. Puff! The strong man's expression changed, and then the entire attacking arm deformed. I saw Jia Yan colliding with the strong man's body, that is, the abdomen, turning into a blue color, and the defense was extremely terrifying. A mere Galaxy Junior, even if he collided with Jia Yan's weakest abdomen, was destroyed. The collision caused the weapon to break and the arm to break. What a terrifying body. This Jia Yan even has strong defense. The Zinged novice used his trump card, but he never expected that he wanted to use this trump card to delay Jia Yan for a period of time, but it had no effect at all. Instead, he looked like an undercover agent on the enemy's side, causing him to lose the ability to contain him. Want to leave? It's not that simple. Of course Jia Yan knew what these guys wanted to do. In an instant, he exploded his brainwave power, and absorbed the group of galaxy-level powerhouses who were vaguely surrounding him. Scope of influence. At this moment, even those who were not fighting Jia Yan head-on were still frightened and did not dare to move, let alone leave with their backs turned to Jia Yan. Because Jia Yan's brainwave power seems to be locked on anyone, his surrounding explosives can be guided by the brainwave power to fly to these strong men in an instant and explode. If so, the lesson learned is the fighting type mid-level peak powerhouse in the galaxy. Moreover, even a combat type strongman at the top of the mid-level galaxy was blown up like that. Among the galaxy level beings surrounding Jia Yan, most of them are not as powerful as this strong man. Maybe they are destined to die. They dared to besiege Jia Yan, but now they were trapped in a dilemma because of Jia Yan's strength and combat reliability. The only way is to let someone stand up again and delay Jia Yan's attack so that Jia Yan can no longer trap so many people here, or simply kill Jia Yan directly. But the problem is that it can't be done, let alone killing Jia Yan, even if the strong man at the beginning of the galaxy just wanted to use his trump card to prevent Jia Yan from affecting other strong men for a while, so that they left to strangle other masters and powerful people, but they couldn't do it, let alone other things. Damn it, I should have killed all the other beings first and then dealt with Jia Yan slowly. It's all you who want to take the credit, right? Now the situation has become unfavorable to us. Well, God knows that Jia Yan is so strong. Besides, it's not just a few of us who want to take the credit. Among the people gathered around, who doesn't want to take the credit? Why are you talking so much? Why don't we all use our trump card now? Even if Jia Yan is strong, he is not at the domain lord level. I think we can still kill him with one blow if we use our trump card together. Okay, let's do this. One by one, the enemy's strong men really changed their attitude towards Jia Yan at this moment. When they got their own rides just now, they were scrambling. Everyone wanted to come to Jia Yan, because they knew that with the large number of people on their side, Jia Yan would definitely be besieged to death by them, so whoever lands the last blow on the head will get the credit. But now, after they discovered that Jia Yan was not as easy to deal with as they thought, every strong man suddenly felt uncomfortable. What's even more serious is that Jia Yan, by himself, actually used his brainwave power, which made them want to detach some of their troops to kill the other galaxy-level masters around them and free up more weapons. The idea of encircling and killing Jia Yan failed. As a result, these strong men cheered up one by one, treating Jia Yan as a creature similar to a domain lord, and carried out a plan to strangle him. In fact, in the North Star, the battle against the domain master creature is not a myth, but a real thing that can happen in any battle or war. Every team of galaxy-level powerhouses has rehearsed the territory lord creatures. Although countless situations have shown that no matter how good the rehearsal is, it is difficult to guarantee that a team of galaxy-level beings can survive in the hands of the territory lord creatures. However, in fact, there are many strong men who use joint tactics or rehearsed plans to save their lives when facing the domain lord creatures. What's more, the strong man they dealt with this time was just a peak mid-level star in the galaxy. They finally came up with a plan to deal with the domain master creatures. Jia Yan must have been unlucky. Buzz buzz. In an instant, Jia Yan felt that the world in front of him had changed into something else. It turned out that two hallucinatory creatures used their trump card to create the scene of heaven and earth that Jia Yan saw, and it became like going into the universe. After the two hallucination-like creatures took action together, Jia Yan felt dizzy, but the vigilance in his heart did not disappear. He even understood that he had encountered a terrifying killer hallucination attack because of the sudden appearance. His brainwave power also increased in an instant. At this moment, in this hallucinatory space, a foot similar to Jia Yan stabbed hard at Jia Yan's back. He was alert enough, but he was inevitably affected by this illusion, and his reaction was half a beat too slow. As a result, his foot scratched a trace of the Azure defense. Fortunately, his Azure defense was strong enough, otherwise this blow might have broken through the Azure defense and seriously injured him. This is a strong man at the middle level of the galaxy. He is not at the top of the middle level of the galaxy, and he is not a fighting type. Jia Yan immediately judged that this strong man should be a middle-level strong man in the galaxy who was testing the waters, and this attack was his trump card, and it still could not cause much damage to himself. This shows that Azure's defense has really improved. After being nourished by the ore with the power of ice and snow, it is actually much stronger than before. But there's nothing to be happy about, because this is the trump card of a mid-level galaxy powerhouse. If a combat-type top mid-level galaxy powerhouse comes with the trump card, my life may be in danger. Jia Yan's face turned cold. Then, he did not enter the subspace, but suddenly triggered dozens of ice and snow explosive stones around him to rise. You have a trump card, right? I use it too. Jia Yan knew that these illusory spaces around him were just illusions. In fact, he was still flying in mid-air. Even if it felt a bit distorted, he could still launch his own attacks in the air. Ha-ha-hoo. Explosive stones flew around Jia Yan's body. Damn it, I just wanted to attack, but his explosive treasure actually protected him and made it impossible for me to attack. What? Are you afraid of death? If you attack him, he is in the hallucination space. It will be difficult to really hit you. Even if he hits you, it won't be fatal. Are you still afraid of getting hurt? Bastard, why don't you attack yourself? Isn't this attack fatal? That's what happened to that idiot just now. I'm not that stupid. I already knew you wanted to take my position. Are you encouraging me to go forward and die today? Are you just killing me so you can replace me? You can eat random things, but you can't say random words. Why should I encourage you? I am just a strong man who is not strong in attack. You are the most cost-effective, so why not? If you are afraid of death, be afraid of death. And he actually said it so fresh and refined. The fighting creatures at the top of the two mid-level galaxies actually started to quarrel outside the circle surrounding Jia Yan. It turns out that there was a combat-type expert at the top of the mid-level galaxy just now who wanted to get close to Jia Yan, but because Jia Yan deployed his ice, snow ore, and explosive defense method, he did not dare to get closer. Now, the combat-type creature at the top of the middle-level galaxy suddenly spoke coldly and began to ridicule. The relationship between the two parties was not very good to begin with. The mid-level peak combat creature from the galaxy that was injured by Jia Yan just now was their immediate boss. But now that his immediate boss became an injured person, the two powerful men suddenly lost their restraints. Turned into a tit-for-tat confrontation. But while the two powerful men were still arguing, Jia Yan, who was shrouded in the hallucination space, suddenly moved. It was like something was broken in the air. The two middle-level galaxies behind him had strong hallucination talents. Both of them seemed to be exhausted, and one of them spat out a mouthful of blood. Now it's better, even the trump card of hallucination can't do much against Jia Yan. His ice and snow stone defense method was too terrifying. No one wanted to get close to the rotating explosives, so he bought time to escape from the hallucination space. Haha, everyone, so many people can't stand me alone. When Jia Yan appeared in the normal space, he found that the galaxy-level enemy troops around him were surrounding him even more closely. Apparently, someone else wanted to take action just now, but was blocked by his own ice and snow explosives. Suddenly, the pride in his heart rose, and he spoke sarcastically. He didn't know that among the enemies surrounding him just now, the two fighting-type mid-level peak powerhouses of the galaxy were quarreling. The strong men looked at Jia Yan like this and suddenly felt that it was very difficult. It's not that they feel like there's nothing they can do against Jia Yan. Because in fact, everyone knows that Jia Yan is the only one. If everyone does not hesitate to live, come to Shiyuan to fight and pay a certain price with their lives. No matter how strong he is, no matter how violent the explosives are, there are so many, there must be a way to kill him brutally. After all, there are two strong fighting type warriors in the team present. They may not look very strong now, but in fact, fighting types are fighting types. After they really use their trump card and join forces, they are still very scary. Therefore, they believed that even if Jia Yan had so many explosives, Jia Yan, who had been surrounded by them in this situation, would definitely still die in their hands. Let's not mention whether these beings' ideas are correct. Let alone defeat Jia Yan, they seem to have lost the possibility of the two powerful men joining forces. After all, when there are disputes and quarrels, who can guarantee that the two strong men can successfully join forces? As a result, the strong men here surrounded Jia Yan for a while, gesticulating back and forth with just a few moves. And Jia Yan didn't want them to have a real sense of life and death crisis. For a while, both sides went back and forth, but no one was really hurt. But when Jia Yan did this, he became the only one who really dragged this group of enemy elites to his side, making the Master's Force army aside and greatly reducing the pressure. On the other end, the two powerful mid-level galactic warriors who controlled the forces killed a mid-level galactic enemy with one blow. What? One of them died. Damn it, why are there more enemies than us on the side? What are those adults doing? They've been around for so long and still can't kill Jia Yan. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2259. Asshole, why are there so many of us but there are so few of us? Is Jia Yan that scary? One person held back so many of our strong men and he's not dead yet. In the outside battle circle, the fighting situation was much more tragic than in the circle where Jia Yan fought. After a strong man in the middle level of the galaxy was killed by the strong warrior who controlled the power, the situation opened up. Originally, the number of masters who controlled the power warriors was smaller than the opponents, but now, at first glance, there were actually more of these strong men. After all, Jia Yan had held back so many strong men, so their numbers would naturally be greater than the opponents. Help! A strong enemy soldier fled with an extremely ugly expression. But behind him, two primary level beings from the galaxy struck together, instantly dispelling the strong man's screams into death. How is that possible? Why does it feel like there are so few people on our side despite the fact that there are so many of us here? Does Jia Yan have such great ability? In the battle group that was surrounded by a numerically disadvantaged group, every member of the enemy team felt puzzled. They had no idea that there were so many strong men on their side, but because of one Jia Yan, not only the fighting beings at the top of the middle level of the three galaxies would be dragged to his side, but also several other galaxies. The first level powerhouses of the first level and the galaxy were all dragged into it. Shouldn't the team in this mode be able to escape after seeing the domain master creature and paying a certain price? Why was it delayed for so long by a combat type being at the top of the mid-level galaxy? The biggest problem is this guy's explosives. Suddenly, a combat type enemy at the top of the intermediate galaxy pointed out the key point with an ugly expression. That's right, when everyone thinks about it and tastes it, they all understand. It's the problem with Jia Yan's explosives. If he was just a fighting being at the top of the mid-level galaxy, there was no reason for such a huge team to come to attack, and there was nothing he could do about it. But the problem is, it is now certain that his explosives are not using his current body energy, at least they do not consume too much power. Therefore, the explosion is an explosion, and his own energy is his own energy. Unfortunately, this kind of explosive is not a rare weapon, but there are so many of them. In addition, the intelligence vaguely shows that this guy may also be a subspace talent. He has not used subspace a few times at the moment. If he can open the subspace in our North Superstar, for people, one can imagine how terrifying the talent of that space is. We didn't understand so many key points, so we came to trouble him. We simply underestimated a strong outsider. To be honest, what these enemy soldiers said now were all based on hindsight, because they had already known a lot of information about Jia Yan before, but they always thought that with so many strong men coming, there must be a way to deal with Jia Yan. But now that things were wrong, they began to make excuses. In short, they just didn't want to admit that they made a mistake. Jia Yan, on the other hand, doesn't care so much. These strong men, regardless of their own chances of failure, attack their side like this, and they will have to pay a certain price. Of course, Jia Yan had not thought about leaving all these enemies here, because this was unrealistic. If it aroused the idea that all these enemies would die together with him, then he would be in trouble. Just as these enemies think, Jia Yan is just a mid-level galactic. Even if he really reaches the strength of a combat creature, even if he still has the advantage of explosives, strength is strength. He is not at the domain lord level. If he offends this group of beings and all of them want to die with him, then he will also die. Bang! Finally, Jia Yan once again triggered an ice and snow explosive stone, which exploded a prepared mid-level combat creature in the galaxy, and the entire arm was severed. There's a problem over there too. Everyone should retreat. This battle is a failure. The only remaining mid-level peak combat creature in the galaxy, with an extremely ugly look on his face, gave these instructions to his other subordinates. Then, all those besieging Jia Yan found a correct position, made no move to support other troops, and slowly retreated. And Jia Yan saw the determination in their eyes and knew that if he tried to stop them from leaving, they might think that they would die together, so after hesitating for a while, he just guarded these powerful people, no matter what. Go to support other battlefields and just watch them leave. After receiving the order from the peak mid-level combat warrior in the galaxy, the enemy forces in other areas suddenly lost their will to fight and began to slowly get out of the battle together. As mentioned before, even if the troops on the Master's side have the advantage in other battlefields, the combat effectiveness of both sides is actually relatively even. If one side insists on leaving, it will be difficult for the other side to stay. Other side. No need to chase. When Jia Yan's order was also transmitted using the power of brain waves, the Master's forces also gave up the pursuit. For a time, the two sides, who were still fighting in full swing, stopped fighting completely. They gave up on pursuing the enemy's battle damage and slowly watched each other leave. Jia Yan also let the troops leave, but before leaving, he collected the corpses of his own soldiers and equipment. This is something that must be done, and it also shows the other party that they still have some energy left. But the enemy actually didn't dare to do this. They just waited from a distance. After Jia Yan and the others sorted out their belongings and then slowly got on the chariot and left, they dared to approach. In this way, it will be clear who wins and who loses on both sides. What's even more exaggerated is that the strength of the enemy and Jia Yan's troops was originally extremely obvious. It was twice as strong, even at the top level of combat power. Jia Yan's side was a fighting type at the top of the mid-level galaxy. 3 of them came directly from the opponent, which was supposed to be a crushing gesture. But the facts show that it seems that quantity does not mean anything. Anyway, Jia Yan is a fighting type who not only blocked 3 peak mid-level galaxies, but also held back a group of galactic-level powerhouses. Such a fighting power is even close to being a domain lord. There is no guarantee whether some very weak non-combat domain lords can achieve this. Of course, the territory lord must be extremely weak, and he must be the one who has just been promoted. Otherwise, the average territory lord will not be so weak. After all, the territory lord is the territory lord, not an ordinary creature. There is also an invisible huge gap between ordinary galaxy levels. In short, The result of Jia Yan's battle came out quickly, and it was quickly spread to the surrounding areas. Even in the battle at the base camp where the war was equally fierce and the master's power was at a disadvantage, it had a huge repercussions. What? Then Jia Yan once again defeated the enemy, and it was a powerful enemy force that specifically went after him. With just one person, he almost managed to hold down 3 of the enemy's top mid-level combat-type creatures from the galaxy, plus a group of low to intermediate powerhouses from the galaxy. Is he really just a mid-level peak person in the galaxy? Are those explosives really so magical? A Zinc-level person was the first to hear about Jia Yan's deeds in this battle. Then, many people felt uncomfortable in their hearts. Because the war here at the base camp is really difficult. And Jia Yan, a man with such a powerful fighting ability who was so close to the Domain Lord level, actually let Shangfeng let him go like this. If he also blocks the enemy in the base camp, wouldn't he be the best of 2, or even the third? If he operates correctly, maybe he can join forces with 3 or 4 other combat-type creatures at the top of the mid-level galaxy to resist a Domain Lord. Of course, resisting the Domain Lord creature is a bit fanciful, but who can guarantee that Jia Yan can't do such a thing? After all, he has reached this level, and there is still a slight chance for the more powerful fighting mid-level pinnacle creatures of the galaxy to join forces to resist the low-level Domain Lords for a period of time. If it can be done, doesn't it mean that there is a chance for this battle at the base camp? It's such a pity. If Jia Yan had already said that he had such fighting ability, how could we let him go? Even in the base camp, the giant tree-like creature felt pity. He is the Domain Lord level powerhouse in this base camp, and he is a Domain Lord who is good at defense and whose combat power is slightly stronger than the average Domain Lord. The reason why this base camp has not collapsed so far is because of the presence of this Territory Lord. After all, everyone knows that they have a good Territory Lord here, otherwise people will definitely be scattered. He was also heartbroken. If he had not agreed to Jia Yan before and allowed him to leave this large territory, otherwise now, he would have a good subordinate who would at least be very powerful in combat effectiveness, second only to the Domain Lord. You know, in the entire base camp, including him, the Great Tree Territory Lord, there is only another Territory Lord, and according to enemy intelligence, there are 4 major Territory Lords. Therefore, if there is one more person who is close to the Territory Lord, or even less powerful, who can almost crush the average mid-level peak fighting creature of the galaxy, then this battle will be much easier. Well, in my opinion, Jia Yan just wants to run away. For him, this place is not a place that he must hold on to. He has only been in the army for a long time. He is still an alien visitor and has control over me. The forces don't have any sense of belonging, so of course they won't fight to the death. The big tree-shaped creature, after thinking about it for a moment, shook its head bitterly. He already knew that Jia Yan wanted to leave. For such a strong man to help fight the war and fight like this, it is already a great honor. It is said that 2 of the 3 top mid-level fighting creatures in the galaxy have to train for a long time before they can fight again. This is already a help. I'm so busy. If an order were sent to him immediately to come back to the base camp to fight to the death with everyone, I'm afraid he would find excuses not to come. For example, he was also injured or something like that. Instead of being a bit angry like that, it's better to let him go. I hope some enemy generals don't like Jia Yan and run to intercept him. This will further disperse the pressure on the main battlefield. In fact, this big tree powerhouse really did the right thing. Huh? I was prepared. The main battlefield would ask me to come back and fight. I was prepared to say that I was seriously injured. I didn't expect that there was no one. Jia Yan was far above the plains, having flown far away, with a strange and surprised look on his face. He was already prepared. On the main battlefield, the troops would be called back to continue fighting because of his performance in this battle. After all, even if he felt that his strength was insufficient. After one battle, the fighting powerhouse who had reached the top of the middle level 3 galaxies was defeated. This was his strength. Even a relatively humble person like him feels that he is awesome. But on the main battlefield over there, he was not asked to turn back and join the battle. Could it be that the Tree Man chief on the main battlefield was so confident in the main battlefield? Jia Yan was a little wrong, thinking that people would value him. Of course, he really valued him, but his thoughts and ideas had already been guessed by others. Instead of calling Jia Yan to come over, and Jia Yan would make excuses not to go and bring trouble to himself, it would be better to just stop calling him. There is still an order, that is, let Jia Yan and the others take a good rest, and then attack the enemy's small forces as much as possible. It is best to destroy the enemy's logistics and equipment. Very good. Since Shang Feng didn't ask us to go back to fight, we can have a good rest. Bury these casualties properly. Some of them are seriously injured. We will send military vehicles to transport them back to the ice and snow area. The others will be prepared to fight safely. Prepare. Yes. In response to Jia Yan's order, the entire army of several hundred people responded with great excitement. After all, after this battle, their army suddenly transformed from a somewhat powerful force to a force with a legendary record. About 1,000 enemy troops came, and there were twice as many galaxy-level experts on our side. There were even 3 fighting types at the top of the galaxy intermediate level. You know, there was only one galaxy intermediate on their side. The top is Lord Jia Yan. But in such a disadvantageous battle, Master Jia Yan actually defeated 3 people, or even more, and held back the enemy's strong main force, and then caused the friendly troops on the side to win a small victory. Although it was not possible to wipe out the entire incoming army, it was enough. You must know that in the world of the strong, it is almost difficult for the weak to defeat the strong. After all, the strength of the strong is not something that can be easily broken through. And the more powerful a person is, the more difficult it is to be defeated by external forces. In other words, the fact that Jia Yan held back so many strong men by himself shows that his combat power has really reached a terrifying level, and the members below are able to carry out Jia Yan's orders and defeat other enemies. They resisted to the death, and their combined tactics and weapons were skillfully used, which showed that this army had grown up. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2260. It is no exaggeration to say that it was a legendary battle. But now, Jia Yan has not been forced into the main battlefield. The biggest worry of this group of soldiers has been relieved, and they all breathed a sigh of relief. Their force came to support in the name of a light mobile force. As long as they were not personally besieged and intercepted by the enemy territory lord, in fact, they could almost escape in this open plain terrain without going to the main battlefield. That is the biggest advantage and benefit. You don't need to thank me. I also have to rely on the help of the big ones to be able to fight like that. Without you, I'm afraid I would have died long ago when I encountered that kind of troops. Jia Yan smiled. He really thought this in his heart, because if he were alone, let alone the 3 combat-type mid-level stars, I am afraid that people would find a way to defeat him. Even if he had explosives, he might not be able to save his life. This was the advantage of having troops assisting him, allowing him to enjoy the feeling of having friendly troops that he had never experienced before. The North Superstar is the North Superstar. It is indeed different. After this battle, the entire partial division force from the land of ice and snow actually experienced a slight change in spirit, and Jia Yan also saw it. Presumably this force will become a more powerful force in the future. It's just a more powerful force. How many times have I seen similar experiences? Jia Yan sighed. Some time had passed since the battle, and he stayed in his own chariot and practiced. The entire Mosquito's momentum has become more dignified, like an abyss. His combat effectiveness was further demonstrated in this battle. To others, it might be a victory in a battle, but to Jia Yan, it was more than just a victory. Because in the eyes of others, he should have had this strength for a long time, but from his own perspective, this was not the case. His strength had only recently increased to this point, and even he himself didn't know whether some of the changes he had tried to make were the right path. After this battle, he was sure that his path was correct, and he felt that his path forward had become more firm and certain. As a result, practicing cultivation would make people feel more firm and powerful. As a result, the entire guarding soldiers around the chariot, as well as the soldiers in several surrounding chariots, all felt that Jia Yan was gradually becoming more and more terrifying. In fact, he did not become more powerful in such a short period of time. It was just that he became more determined after firming up his cultivation path. This was just an illusion, but it seemed like real progress. The reason Jia Yan went to Beostar was because he was thinking about his future. And on this road ahead, the clouds and mist are gradually lifting away to see the bright moon. For him, this is simply the most exciting thing. In comparison, a victory within the master's power is nothing. Even if he increases his reputation, it is of no use at all, because for Jia Yan, the North Star is too huge. Even if he has the reputation of such a small area, even if his reputation is so great that everyone in the nearby big forces knows it. What's the extent? For the entire super great northern giant that spans more than 9 trillion kilometers, this is just a small corner, with a range of hundreds of millions of kilometers. It is not worthy of how happy Jia Yan thinks he should be. Besides, he is not a strong local player in the North Star, so what does it matter no matter how famous he is? Therefore, Jia Yan was not moved at all by the fact that he had won a battle and his popularity had risen again. Did you lose to Jia Yan again? Very good, very good. Within the enemy's camp, there was a powerful man with astonishing aura. This strong man has a very high status in the military camp, and there are only a few people with similar strength to him. This is a territory lord level existence, and one of the 4 territory lords who control the plains where the enemy is coming this time. He was the first territory lord to rush to the scene after Jia Yan wiped out the surprise attack convoy. That day, he felt that he was being teased by Jia Yan, a mere mid-level peak powerhouse in the galaxy who controlled the power. Therefore, in this battle, he sent a force that was better than Jia Yan's intelligence. A force twice as powerful went to strangle Jia Yan and the others. But what he never expected was that the terror of Jia Yan's army was more terrifying than he imagined. Jia Yan's existence alone dragged nearly half of the masters from his troops around him. As a result, because of such a slight change, the entire battle that was supposed to be one-sided turned into anxiety for both sides. Then the surprise attack force he sent had to return in defeat with a near defeat. In other words, this failure was actually his failure. A territory lord was defeated by a mid-level peak powerhouse from the galaxy. This was unbearable for a domain lord, not to mention that he had already suffered a loss at the hands of Jia Yan. Who? This strong man has an extremely impulsive character. At that moment, he stood up in his true form. I want to fight in person. No sir. When the domain master creature was about to personally go to the place where Jia Yan last appeared and kill Jia Yan's partial force with his own hands, there was a deputy beside him who quickly stopped him at the exit. The domain lord's deputy creature is naturally a relatively powerful person. He is a fighting type mid-level peak of the galaxy. However, compared to his own combat power, this deputy's strength lies in his resourcefulness. Sir, you are the center of our army. If we go to the depths of the plain to attack Jia Yan, and the enemy knows the information, they may set up a trap to trap you. Even if no accident occurs to you, I will find a way to trap you, sir, and then attack our base camp. This will cost us more than we lose, sir. This deputy has always been a major player in calming down the Domain Lord creatures in front of him. After the Domain Lord creature's expression changed slightly, he finally shook his head and calmed down. "Well, it's you who reminds me again, otherwise I will make a big mistake. But I really can't swallow this breath. Why don't you bring a few strong men over to kill this Jia Yan, otherwise I won't comfortable." The Domain Lord's face-to-face order, the resourceful mid-level warrior of the galaxy, did not dare to respond. He only had the right to advise the adults in front of him, but he did not have the right to refute, and he also wanted to see the so-called alien. "How capable is our guest Jia Yan? As ordered, I will definitely not disappoint you, my lord." This resourceful creature quickly retreated. Although he is also a fighting type, he is different from the fighting types who previously chased Jia Yan. He is stronger, and after knowing the fighting power of Jia Yan and the others, he will naturally not use such a little bit of fighting power this time. Went there. Anyway, on the main battlefield on the front line, their side has the majority of the advantage, so what if a small amount of troops are sent to the depths of the plain to chase down the partial division of the Master's forces? It does not affect the overall situation. In fact, among the two enemy forces, the other three Domain Lords were silently watching the progress of this matter. The four major Domain Lords are said to be a coalition, but in fact, no matter whether they are the same force or not, there is a certain gap between them. After all, among the strong men in the universe, they just look down on each other, and no one is an absolute friend. Or enemies, even for the sake of profit, they can even betray the forces behind them. The strong men in the universe act for the sake of their own strength. Even if there is a little difference in the North Star, it is not much different. As a result, although they saw the actions of the Domain Master who wanted to retaliate against Jia Yan, no one came forward to offer any opinions. What's more, they are also very interested in the existence of this Territory Lord, who is hunting down the latest rising star of the so-called Master's power. They want to know if this prodigy in the enemy's army can escape the disaster. No matter what, killing a powerful rising star in the enemy army early is also a good way for them to relieve the pressure. So they didn't stop it, just watched with cold eyes. Let's talk about it in several parts. Not only Jia Yan's side, the war there, at best, is like a small splash in this war, and cannot make any waves at all. The real war will always happen on the main battlefield. As for the war on the plains, it depends on the several major battlefields at the main barracks. The focus of the battle on the battlefield is the pressure on the front. The armies of both sides have been fighting along the main front of the Master's forces. Although it is such a huge plain area, for the sake of a front of several hundred meters, both sides can throw away hundreds of corpses. Every meter of progress is achieved at a heavy price from both the enemy and ourselves. Under this kind of competition, it is useless for powerful beings to fly in the sky, because there will be countless weapons aimed at you. Even the Domain Lord will not be stupid enough to risk such a firepower attack to defeat the enemy in the sky. What kind of beheading plan did the army carry out? Because in mid-air, you will be dizzy by the enemy's firepower, and your strength will be reduced by 3 out of 10. When you land, if there is a Domain Lord creature nearby, the enemy's strength is intact, but you have lost less than half of your strength, the outcome will be it's already doomed. This is the reason why in large-scale wars, both sides can still use weapons to determine the outcome of the war within a certain range. Of course, if there is no Domain Lord on the Master's side, then the enemy Domain Lord does not care whether they have weapons or not. No matter how powerful these weapons are, it will be difficult to kill them in a short time, so they can break into the enemy's formation. A killing spree, followed by victory. However, because there are Territory Lords on both sides, even though the Territory Lords have doubled the number of enemies, as the attackers, they do not dare to advance rashly. This is why, in this battle, both sides are obviously not strong enough. Proportion is still the reason for war. Countless pieces of information about the main battlefield are sent out every day, not only to the major cities in the plains behind, but also to the troops fighting in the field like Jiayan. Of course, there are other troops outside besides Jiayan's, because such troops are either conducting reconnaissance or loitering to attract the enemy's attention, which is very necessary. Of course, among these, Jiayan's partial division is the most important, and it is not the first, it is the first. Because not only did they have such strong combat results in the past, but this time, at the beginning of the war, they used the ability of a single unit to defeat an incoming force that was twice as strong as themselves, and they lost their armor. Having to retreat, this incident has become a reason for the soldiers to cheer up. Everyone thinks that Jiayan's army is a surprise. Oh, today is another invincible situation. The big tree-like domain master is extremely capable. He can even command defensive battles. That's of course. Your Excellency Jushu's personal strength is biased towards defense, and his behavior and command style are also biased towards defense. In previous wars, his defenses are notoriously difficult to break through. This is the reason why the senior leaders of our master family put him on this battlefield as a defensive general. Jia Yan listened to the information from his subordinates and nodded involuntarily. In many cases, everyone really has his or her own style in behaving and doing things. Looking for a book it is like the existence of this giant tree domain master. His defensive ability is extremely outstanding, and in contrast, his command ability is also biased towards the defensive direction. He is calm and steady. It is impossible for such a talent to attack cities and plunder territories, but if he is allowed to defend, he will definitely be a good choice. The choice of a strong man is the character of a strong man, which affects the entire battle strategy. In this way, the war on the main battlefield will not be so prone to problems. Jia Yan has been on the plain battlefield for so long. After seeing the current information, this is the first time that he feels a little at ease. In fact, when he first came here, he felt uneasy in his heart, because the comparison of strength between the two sides was right in front of him, and it was completely impossible to defeat the side of the master's power. As soon as the current situation emerged, he slightly understood why, in this contrast, the master's forces did not immediately send troops to help. It turned out that they knew that the fighting power here was enough to withstand it for a period of time. This shows that the power of the masters is good at using troops. At least in this case, they know the priorities and use their troops in more critical and tense places. However, even the area where this kind of fighting has been fought has not been whitened at all. Oh no, including our reinforcements from the ice and snow area, there are only a few thousand reinforcements, which shows that for the time being, the power of the master is really it's because we are stretched thin, otherwise it wouldn't be so embarrassing. Jia Yan understands that the entire situation needs to be looked at from many aspects, and one must be able to see both the good and the bad, otherwise there will be limitations. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2261. Fortunately, he was an alien visitor who had arrived at the Master's land not long ago, so emotional issues would not affect his judgment. The power of the controller is a disadvantage, and that is a disadvantage. He will not believe all the slogans in the propaganda to cheer up the people. Of course, this war is as thought before. If the power of the master can survive and the subsequent combat potential begins to burst out, then it will have to be fought. In such a huge territory, the people themselves have hundreds of billions of people. If all the people are really involved in the plan, the fight will probably go on endlessly. In the end, even the idea of dividing the land of the master among these forces will be difficult to realize, or they will only be able to annex part of it. Jia Yan just thought about it. He didn't know the real reason and purpose of those forces joining forces. Maybe they wanted a part of the master's territory. One part is also a huge one, representing a large amount of resources and population. Isn't that enough? Okay, there is no need for me to worry about the Master's power. It will definitely be a long time until they actually annex the Master's power or something. By then, I might have already become the domain lord. Jia Yan no longer cares about the power of the Master, because he feels that his own affairs are more important. Anyway, my current plan is to lead the troops to escape when I find that the situation is not good. If the situation is too urgent and I can't even take the troops away, then I will escape alone. As for doing this, will it cause any harm? If the great reputation I built earlier is lost, then I won't care about it, because I don't care. Jia Yan made a plan and then waited to see what would happen. It's just that he wants to continue to survive, but there are some aspects that prevent him from getting what he wants. That is the troops from the enemy's base camp. Report. Sir, this time there is a sub-main enemy force of about 3,000 men, coming towards our troops in a mighty manner. What? When Jia Yan and the small team he led were wandering on the plain terrain without encountering an enemy for several days and thought they could continue to survive, he heard an urgent report from the scout team. Jia Yan was so shocked that he almost flew out of the chariot and ran away. 3,000 troops? The last time it was only 1,000, he felt that there were enemy troops in all directions, but now he actually sent 3,000 in one breath. You must know that even if there is a large population in Biostar, the number in the army will not be extremely exaggerated. What's more, what can be called a sub-main force is definitely second only to the main combat force. The meaning of troops is that they are second only to troops that can launch a full-scale war. Therefore, these 3,000 men and horses are definitely something that cannot be underestimated. After all the injuries and deaths on Jia Yan's side, there were only about 300 people. Against 3,000 men and horses, not to mention that the enemy might come and be far more powerful than here. Just say that with a pile of people, these 300 people could be defeated. The men and horses were piled to death. No matter how strong the tactics are, they are useless, and it seems that Jia Yan and the others really have no tactics at all. Order to go down and avoid the battle. Let's start leaving the battlefield at full speed. Yes. Jia Yan's order was so correct. Many members of the army agreed with him. What they were afraid of was that this stubborn commander would do anything to the incoming super-powerful enemy troops as before. That Ironhead's frontal combat strategy. Fortunately, Jia Yan didn't look like the tough guy they knew. In fact, they all misjudged the wrong person. Jia Yan is not a strong-willed person. He is also able to judge the situation. He has escaped countless times in the starry sky. What's more, in the territory of the Master's power, he is not afraid. It was embarrassing, and no one around him knew him. Boom. Tens of thousands of meters above the sky, military vehicles were flying across the sky. They don't even want scouts and scouts anymore. They just want those guys to find the main force on their own, or find other friendly forces to join them. After all, they only have 300 people. By the time the scouts gather, they will have been killed by 3,000 enemies. Troops surrounded. Jia Yan would not think that there would be any good results even if his troops were 10 times inferior. So they began dragging the group of enemies into a hide-and-seek chase and escape across the plains. Fortunately, Jia Yan's unit is a light cavalry-type chariot unit with high mobility. Even though the enemy's 3,000 troops had long expected that it would turn into such a pursuit and escape battle, and had also transformed into light cavalry, what they did not expect was that Jia Yan's troops had already studied and become familiar with the grassland in these days. The terrain and advancement plan made the escape and route selection methods extremely efficient. On the other hand, the enemy, because they had just arrived, could not increase their pursuit speed. Even if they were divided into 3,000-man troops and captured Jia Yan and the others from 3 directions, they were still captured again and again. Let Jia Yan and the others slip through their fingers. Now it gets interesting. It turned out that Jia Yan and the others became famous in several counter-hunting and sneak attack battles. It's just that in previous battles, they either destroyed a sneak attack army with a similar number to them, or drove away a force of 1,000 people. Even though it was quite sensational, it did not have much impact on the battle situation. But it's different now. Their small force of 300 people was actually surrounded by a large force of 3,000 people dispatched by the enemy in retaliation. They led this force and turned into a hide-and-seek. In other words, they, 300 people, were originally the negligible number of characters dragged the enemy's main force of 3,000 people with strong combat effectiveness away from the battlefield. You must know that within the main battlefield, there is a big difference between the lack of 3,000 people and the 3,000 more people, both in terms of the momentum of the war and the actual strength. As a result, many comments were heard on the battlefield between the two sides. For example, some people are discussing that Jia Yan's army is really terrible and extremely unique. Although their combat effectiveness seems to be average, they all rely on Jia Yan's combat effectiveness to achieve the above two battles. But never expected that under other circumstances, they would still achieve combat results that other ordinary troops could not match. There are also some aspects where we are discussing Jia Yan and his team's tactics, such as how Jia Yan and his team pursued, fled, and countered their pursuit, and also talked about how in some cases it was obvious that the enemy would chase Jia Yan and his team to their tails. But Jia Yan and the others used their inexplicable fighting abilities to escape. They were simply a model of pursuit and escape tactics. But in fact, it was said that he praised the entire partial division led by Jia Yan, but in fact all the soldiers in this partial division knew very well that even if they did not behave like ordinary soldiers, they were all this ability is due to many consecutive battles. In addition, the escape ability that is favored by outsiders, but in fact, they know very well that it is entirely the role of Jia Yan. Yes, it was really Jia Yan alone who played the role. Because in this battle, not only the soldiers are making progress, but the one who has made the greatest progress is actually Jia Yan himself. As a strong person at the top of the middle level of the galaxy, Jia Yan had always believed that he should not be able to fight with the combat level of combat-type creatures. But after fighting again and again, he defeated a large number of mid-level peak combat-type creatures in the galaxy. After that, he gradually changed himself. He began to admit that he should be capable of fighting creatures. But after that, he still didn't think that he had the strength to be a senior fighting type, because he had just possessed these fighting abilities, and compared to a fighting type with real rich combat experience, he was still far behind. Therefore, he has been working hard to grow himself. After fighting again and again, he is desperately trying to absorb all the tactics, results, and some flashes of inspiration that are useful to him. In this way, Jia Yan quickly discovered many things that were effective for him. For example, when he was in battle, he thought that his combat effectiveness should be effective for the entire army. Because his talent is so unique, his ability to forward and reverse yin and yang dao is also very unique. For example, subspace and ice and snow explosives. To put it bluntly, these are all things that make him different from other strong men. They are also his biggest trump card. These are the items that can quickly reach combat types. Therefore, Jia Yan believes that he should be able to find a way to bring out the group fighting ability of all items. In the past, when he was in the arms of Orion, he came up with the group fighting ability, which was to use his own brainwave power and so on. Although what happened later proved that this ability is too common in the universe, every strong person will use the power of brainwaves to kill the weak people around him. But Jia Yan has always been such a thinking person, and his several correct judgments also show that the accuracy of his actions and judgments is worthy of trust. So, while he was chasing the 3,000 enemy troops, he was summarizing and thinking about whether his various abilities could play any role in such a battle. It is impossible to bombard the weak with brainwave power. For the strong people in the North Star, This method of killing the weak by the strong is simply the most basic. If it were replaced by an ordinary street, such a move might kill a lot of the weak, but if you put it in the army, it would be wishful thinking. If the weak in the army were so easy to deal with, on the battlefield in the North Star, it is estimated that only the strong would have participated in the battle, and the weak would have just waited for the strong to win. In fact, this is not the case. In the North Star, the weak also have their own methods, at least to a certain extent. As long as the brainwave power of the strong does not exceed that of the weak by much, they also have various protective measures, especially in the military. Inside, there are both equipment and unique defense training techniques for strong men in the army. Therefore, even if a venerable level being stands in front of Jia Yan and asks Jia Yan to shock him to death with just one brainwave power, he will probably be killed. More difficult. So what Jia Yan is thinking about is other means. As for effectiveness, it is clear. The incident that caused a stir among the outside world, saying that Jia Yan's troops actually held back 3,000 enemy troops, was Jia Yan's masterpiece. At the beginning, Jia Yan and the others were also hit hard. After all, this enemy army is here just for Jia Yan and the others, especially their commander, who is definitely a powerful being. He will kill Jia Yan and the others, even if they are discovered by Jia Yan. The traces of this unit were actually the enemy's timing, causing Jia Yan and the others to panic and flee into the encirclement. Jia Yan and the others fell into a panic at first. During the first battle, Jia Yan's dozens of military vehicles were surrounded by about 100 enemy military vehicles. As time went by, more and more military vehicles were surrounded, and a chase began in the sky. In the pursuit and escape battle, soldiers were shot down to the ground one by one. In this battle, Jia Yan and the others lost about 5 military vehicles and about 40 soldiers. The number of people suddenly decreased significantly. In the end, Jia Yan used no less than 30 positive and negative explosives to clear the space behind the troops. They were arranged densely and took the initiative to crash about 10 enemy military vehicles, so that the enemy could not catch up with them. It was such a tragic battle that made Jia Yan feel something new from the last moment. The biggest idea among them is that the ice and snow explosives pushed the enemy's chariot away in a dangerous explosion, and our own chariots were pushed away by the ice and snow explosives. 10 meters, then suddenly accelerated and fled the battlefield. In the next few battles, the enemy discovered that each of Jia Yan's military vehicles was equipped with so-called explosives, especially at the tail of the vehicle. Every time the enemy was about to catch up. At that time, a terrifying explosion will erupt in time, pushing the chariot forward, and the enemy chariot behind it, if it pursues too closely, will be blown up beyond recognition by the directional explosion power, and even the battle chariot will be blown up beyond recognition. The cars were destroyed. At this time, the most basic pursuit and escape battle of Jia Yan's troops gradually took shape. Anyway, Jia Yan has quite a lot of ice and snow explosives. It's just that he needs to continue to make them day and night on the way to escape, which is a bit tiring. Moreover, their troops were not always bitten by the enemy. They often received notifications from other baggage troops around them and went to receive some supplies. The remaining more than 200 people did not lose a single person until half a month later. As a result, the Jia Yan troop finally became famous all over the plain battlefield. They were famous enough before, but because their numbers were too small, they didn't have much impact on the battle situation no matter how effective they were. But now, they have held back a sub-main force, and without reducing their own numbers, they can always eliminate dozens of enemy troops every time a frontal pursuit and escape begins. For half a month, causing the enemy's force of 3,000 men to lose more than 200 men. This was a huge blow to the enemy. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2262. As a result, both the enemy and our side immediately shifted their vision to this small off-field battlefield. And this strange small army seems to have begun a violent evolution. Jia Yan's troops have become legends. When they are moving and chasing, they often encounter our troops or people, and they will be looked at with extremely awe. You know, sometimes, the baggage troops specially sent to replenish supplies for them have more troops than Jia Yan's troops, and even the overall strength is not much weaker. Unfortunately, the status of the two sides was completely different. The baggage troops were just baggage troops. There was even one incident where a 300-man chariot unit led by a mid-level peak powerhouse in the galaxy transported a large amount of ice, snow ore, as well as food from the hometown of the soldiers coming to the ice and snow area, as well as combat supplies. The baggage troops escorted to Jia Yan's troops were intercepted by a group of 500 enemy troops in advance, and the entire army was almost annihilated in a sneak attack on the road. As a result, Jia Yan arrived with more than 200 people called Jia Yan's troops. Have you ever seen 200 people beating up 500 people? The 300 people in the baggage force, oh no, when Jia Yan and the others arrived, more than half of the baggage force had been killed and wounded, with only 100 or so creatures left. Just watching helplessly, Jia Yan's army of more than 200 creatures, no matter how strong they were, was not as strong as the enemy. They actually used dozens of military vehicles to form an encirclement formation, and without hesitation, they attacked the enemy who was far outnumbered. Surrounded by troops. Then, the battle started, which was an eye-opener for the baggage troops. In this battle, a unique pattern called Jia Yan's troops' unique joint tactics was quickly spread. The combatants in Jia Yan's army did not know when they learned some kind of fighting method that did not belong to the master's force. They had an explosive weapon in their hands. Although every explosion was not as powerful as the ice and snow explosive stone, but it has extremely terrifying penetrating power. After that, they each mastered a very strange joint fighting method. At least 2 people can join forces, and as many as 10 people can work together. And the fighting method of this group of 10 people, combined with the explosive weapons in their hands, a group of 10 people can actually fight against an enemy of the first level of the galaxy with the 10 great masters. You know, it could be the elementary level of galaxy. No matter how terrifying the explosive weapons are, it would be difficult to do this. Unbelievable. After Jia Yan's troops finally wiped out all 500 enemy troops in this battle, and 2 of the top mid-level galaxy enemies were killed in his hands, their reputation completely exploded. Make a name for yourself. Afterwards, a statement that was spread by the enemy or within the army of the master's forces spread like a plague. Jia Yan's army is less than 10,000, and it is invincible if it is full of 10,000. Now, although I don't know where this information came from, the lower-level soldiers on both sides were alarmed for a moment. That's right. The small group that people tentatively named Jia Yanjun to support the foreign army only has a few hundred people. Such a few hundred people have actually achieved such military exploits. What if they are allowed to increase the number of soldiers? If the number increases to 10,000 and they can still maintain such a combat effectiveness and battle loss ratio, then can they defeat 1 against 10? If it could really be done, it would be an army equal to 100,000 people. An army of 100,000 people, in this North Star, at least within the power of the Master, has incredible combat effectiveness. For a time, throughout the entire battle, the name Jia Yan not only entered the ears of a large number of ordinary soldiers, but also entered the ears of senior officials on both sides. That Jia Yan is so awesome. He can achieve this level in a field battle with just a few hundred people. In the Master's Force base camp, the big tree creature looked extremely surprised, and its eyes were full of admiration for Jia Yan. General, do you want to invite the Jia Yan army to return to the main battlefield? With such a force joining us, our morale will surely improve, and they should be able to play a certain role. No need, I finally understand this Jia Yan Jun. They are just a group of troops suitable for fighting in the wild. Take a look at their past battles. There is no victory that they have not won in the field. Putting such an army in on our main battlefield, it might be wasted in an instant, so we can't do this. After answering the deputy's question, the big tree creature thought for a while, and then spoke again. However, if such a useful combat power cannot be used to their full potential, it would be against the regulations on the battlefield. The current battle situation is still quite disadvantageous for us. Since their fighting ability is so strong, I will give them some tasks, such as bombing certain key facilities of the enemy, or sneak attacks on certain supplies troops. If they can achieve good results in these battles, then their influence will be really great. No longer under an army of 10,000 people. Your Majesty, General, I will draw up an order right now. The adjutant happily agreed. As for the big tree creature, his gaze was fleeting, and he quickly focused his attention on the strategic sand table on the main battlefield. For him, Jia Yanjun's matter could only be regarded as a small fortune, and the possibility of having an impact on the main battlefield was not great, so he just gave the order. At most, he felt a slight affection for such a small division like Jia Yanjun, but did not pay too much attention to it. There are only more than 200 troops left, which is indeed too few for him. But the presence of more than 200 people was only temporary. Not long after, when Jia Yan received the new order, a small group of new soldiers from Ice and Snow City, who were actually veterans with combat experience, joined his army, which was officially named Jia Yan's army. When he came to the army, he smiled bitterly. What Jia Yanjun, I really don't want to become famous, so why did Jia Yanjun come? He was really helpless. Jia Yan didn't want to make a big show on this kind of battlefield, because he knew that if he was targeted by a large regular force, his safety would be in danger. Even if the means are sufficient, subspace can be opened anytime and anywhere, and various tactics have been verified in the war, but all these benefits and advantages are not as important as life to Jia Yan. It is not easy to reach the current peak of the galaxy intermediate level. In recent days, I have gradually seen more of the fighting methods of the galaxy-level powerhouses in the North Star, and sorted out many of my own usefulness. When the Domain Lord's road is slowly unfolding, it is a prosperous road. He really doesn't want to die. It would be too frustrating to die at this moment. If he really wants to fight, he should wait until he reaches the Territory Lord. At that time, Jia Yan feels that his combat effectiveness will be greatly improved. Moreover, he is still a fighting Territory Lord. Presumably, in any battlefield, there will be extremely powerful. You have a strong ability to protect yourself. At the moment, he just wants to fish in troubled waters, explore more combat and tactical levels while fighting, and wait until the right time to reach the Domain Lord level. By then, the sky is high and the birds can fly. It is not limited to the place of power of the master. But the problem is that what he has shown is a bit beyond what the average mid-level peak powerhouse in the galaxy can do. Even the average combat type mid-level peak powerhouse in the galaxy cannot achieve his level. Let me ask you, how can an ordinary mid-level fighting type galaxy mid-level peak be able to kill many fighting type beings of the same level that surround him again and again? For other strong men, this is something that is extremely surprising to them. But Jia Yan himself could only smile bitterly. Because he understands that his fighting power is really not too terrifying compared to others. The scary thing is that he has both positive and negative explosives. If this kind of thing is not made in advance, it will have no effect at all. As for other aspects, such as blue defense and subspace, they are not mature enough. At least for the moment, Jia Yan feels that he is better at escaping. Really putting aside explosives, he is one-on-one with a group of people. A more powerful combat type being fought with him, and I'm afraid it can only be said that he ran away. But he was definitely not like this in the eyes of others, so he came with a battle request that left him speechless. Attack. Instead of escaping and defending? The higher UPS don't know, are there still some tails behind us? They didn't get rid of the tails, so they asked us to attack. This is simply. Jia Yan looked at the task given to him speechlessly, and more than once, he cursed the giant tree creature that issued the order 100 times. Sir Jia Yan, actually, I think we can indeed complete the tasks assigned above as much as possible. I think with your strength and our cooperation, we should be able to achieve part of the tasks. Beside Jia Yan, a mid-level galaxy powerhouse who was assigned by Yin to become his deputy said respectfully. Jia Yan glanced at the strong man and felt that his brain was a bit feverish and burned out. When people enter the battlefield, they always run as far away as possible, especially the galaxy-level powerhouses, who have no loyalty at all, because they will not be short of food wherever they go, but this guy still wants to take risks to carry out such dangerous tasks mission. Jia Yan didn't believe it if he said his brain wasn't burned out. However, he may not know that the reason for this mid-level deputy of Galaxy's statement is not for other reasons, but because Jia Yan led them in a series of battles, which was simply exaggerated and perfect, so that this strong man was also promoted. The idea of wanting to compete for more military glory arose. With more military achievements, you will enjoy greater military benefits later, and you may even become a guest within the master's family. This is a huge benefit. For the average galaxy level within the master's power, it is a dream, so they are willing to take a little risk. But Jia Yan needs convincing. Judging from past contacts and observations, the deputy actually understood that Jia Yan was the kind of strong man who wanted to live a casual life and did not have much sense of belonging to the master's power. However, he was just an alien visitor. Not to mention the master's force, even the northern superstar is just a passerby. How can he have any sense of belonging to the master's force? Therefore, it is more difficult to convince Jia Yan. But it takes persuasion even if it's difficult. Who made Jia Yan such a powerful man? Especially the explosives, they were so terrifying that it was unbelievable. There is also the new joint warfare method taught by Jia Yan, which seems to be called the Yin and Yang Dao joint warfare method, right? This method of warfare must first let the soldiers learn who is positive and who is negative, and then splice the positive and negative phases so that those with different attributes are the best. In this way, they can create a kind of battle according to Jia Yan's training methods. The most terrifying fighting group. In this way, each member of the entire Jia Yan army has outstanding combat effectiveness, and when they join forces, they are even more terrifying. There is no doubt that Jia Yan taught these soldiers his yin and yang Tao. It's just the kind of yin and yang that favors joint warfare, and it's also the kind that has taught many soldiers in the Orion arm. It's just that his current understanding and mastery of yin and yang Dao is much better than when he first entered the galaxy level, so what he teaches seems to be two different things. Moreover, every strong man in the territory of the master's influence is overflowing with talent. Even ordinary soldiers in the arms of Orion are top-notch geniuses. Therefore, the new joint method taught by Jia Yan, although it is difficult to it was a little more difficult to teach ordinary soldiers than the Orion arm, but they mastered and understood it faster than ever before. Within a month, they were able to shine on the battlefield. In this way, Jia Yanjun's strength is fully demonstrated. The adjutant looked at Jia Yan, and now he had the feeling of looking at a powerful and talented person. Because through their recent inquiries and understanding, they already know that the so-called yin-yang Dao and the positive and negative explosives created by yin-yang Dao are the new cultivation methods created by Jia Yan himself. In other words, this alien visitor, who should have been much less talented than the powerful people within the North Star, turned out to be a top-notch talent. Maybe they are considered top-notch geniuses within North Star. Of course, this adjutant has too little experience. North Star is also extremely large. He has never seen what a real genius looks like, so it's hard to judge whether it is correct. In short, he has never seen many people as talented as Jia Yan within this master's force. Well, to reply to the above, our Jia Yan army accepted this mission, but because there are new recruits joining, it takes time to train, and there are enemies chasing us behind us, which are the two most unfavorable factors for us, so we will not be dispatched for the time being, but will conduct operations according to the situation. Okay. Jia Yan's words were a rejection, but there was no problem in name. Because the two major problems he mentioned are objectively existing things. The recruits did add 300 people, increasing Jia Yan's army to 500 people. However, these 500 people also need to be tempered, plus the enemy is chasing behind them. This it is also a huge threat and hidden danger to Jia Yan Jun. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2263. It's just that the adjutant felt that with the current combat capabilities of Jia Yan's army, it was not impossible to eat up the 2,000 troops behind them. However, Jia Yan refused to eat and was unwilling to take risks, so there was nothing he could do. Both reasons are justified, so Jia Yan Jun is unwilling to move for the time being, so there is nothing he can do. No one can do anything against him. It's reasonable, what can be done? When Jia Yan's reply came back to the base camp from his deputy communications soldier, among the enemy troops that were following Jia Yan and their troops along the way, that one was ordered to replace his domain lord in danger. The deputy who was uttering evil words looked extremely ugly at this time. As a think tank, he actually failed several times during this mission and turned the Najayan troops he was chasing into a powerful force that was famous far and wide. You know, in this rumor, their troops have become supporting roles, but funny supporting roles. In battle after battle, their troops are losing troops. Jia Yan's troops have lost very few men and horses, and they have been surrounded several times. They were all escaped by Jia Yan Jun. As a general think tank, this deputy felt extremely uncomfortable. In fact, other soldiers and officers in this unit knew that this deputy officer had done a good job. Every time he surrounded and strangled Jia Yan's troops, every aspect was taken into consideration. Even Jia Yan's combat effectiveness was considered to the extreme. But the problem is, Jia Yan has a new backup plan every time, which catches this unit completely off guard. Until the last time, they set up an ambush in one breath and successfully attracted Jia Yan's troops to the bait. Unexpectedly, Jia Yan's army broke out into a joint strategy, and with the help of more ice and snow explosive stones created by Jia Yan, here the 500 forwards in the ambush circle were all wiped out. In this way, no matter how well their unit had done in the past, it was useless. Judging from the results, this deputy failed. Judging from Jia Yan's previous fighting energy, even if they turned back and fought us to the death, they would have a chance to win, but they didn't do anything and even kept running away. In fact, they were using us as a shield to prevent them from going to the front line. Okay, you don't want to fight, don't you? It does give us more time for research and preparation. If there is a chance, we will strike with thunder and wash away the humiliation of the past. Among the enemy's troops, there is no longer any reluctance to fight. Their entire sub-main force chasing Jia Yan was toyed with by Jia Yan's team of several hundred people all the way around. This made Jia Yan's army famous and at the same time turned them into roadside stinkers. Shit, the coalition forces of the two major forces on their side, and the soldiers of all other armies are laughing at them. So everyone in this unit is working hard and preparing to give Jia Yan's unit a hard blow. Moreover, if Jia Yan's army can be eliminated, the great reputation he has created in the past and his fighting methods that make everyone look up to him will be transferred to this enemy army that has destroyed Jia Yan's army, and their reputation will be achieved. After all, although Jia Yan has been fighting them, his own weird fighting patterns are approved by everyone and are being studied by countless people. Maybe such fighting skills will be a kind of future war. Maybe a new model. So if this force that is chasing Jia Yan can kill Jia Yan's force once and for all in one battle, then they will really become famous. It also washed away the previous shame. Of course, so far, I have only thought about these things. Even if this adjutant exists, he is a relatively resourceful person, but it is very difficult to think of a way to deal with Jia Yan's combat skills. As I have said a long time ago, strength is the real strength. As long as you have strength, it will not change because of a small change. Jia Yan's small force has turned into a more troublesome force due to his several methods. So they have the strength. It is almost impossible to defeat them easily without unique methods. So the chasing troops were also thinking about techniques to crack Jia Yan's several tactics. The whole process was peaceful for both parties. As for Jia Yan, after rejecting several missions, one day, an order came down that they could not refuse at all. This was already half a month after receiving the newly recruited soldiers. Considering the speed at which Jia Yan trained the soldiers, a relatively demanding mission came from above. This mission is said to be a death order, but of course it is not so absolute. But if Jia Yan and the others do not accept it, then not only will they be suspected of being greedy for life and afraid of death, but the impact of this battle will be on the entire Battle of the Grassland. That was a baggage team transporting large quantities of combat weapons. On the way to deliver the weapons, they were surrounded by an enemy force. Now the battle has been going on for more than an hour, and what a coincidence, it is not far from Jia Yan's army. This batch of weapons is indispensable defensive equipment for our main force on the grassland. If it is gone, there may be huge loopholes on the main battlefield, and then be broken through by the enemy, so this order is to die. The order, if you can complete it, then from now on, the reputation of your Jia Yan unit will be truly opened up, and all the soldiers who know your Jia Yan unit on the entire battlefield will tremble because of this unit. And if you refuse, or the mission is not completed, then the Battle of the Grassland will probably fail. This batch of weapons is extremely critical, and its value is secondary. The main reason is that it is too needed, so Jia Yan, do you want to accept it? A one-time mission. This mission notification actually used super encryption technology, and the domain master creature of the giant tree personally issued it to Jia Yan. On the screen, Jia Yan looked at the giant tree creature. It seemed that this guy had probably gone through several battles. There were many defects in the branches of the giant tree, which could cause injuries to a territory lord. That is only possible for domain master creatures. Jia Yan thought for a while. In fact, he was really unwilling to take on such a dangerous task. Let's not talk about whether this mission is difficult to complete. It is worth pondering that this besieged unit is right next to his Jia Yan unit. It looked like it was attracting Jia Yan's troops to die. But after thinking for a long time, Jia Yan finally nodded. Because there is no room for failure in this mission, if it fails, the main force will collapse. Next, he will lead his troops and start escaping into the hinterland, and the main force will be held back by a few people. It is hard to say whether the enemy of the territory lord will come to hunt down Jia Yan's troops in person. After all, his army is too famous, and the defeat of the main barracks also shows that the two territory lords of his own may either dead or seriously injured. The enemy's next target for the territory lord will definitely be a more powerful mid-level peak fighting existence of the galaxy. At that time, Jia Yan will be as conspicuous as a large light bulb. There is no way, who could have become such a famous existence just by having fun. After Jia Yan thought for a while, he finally nodded solemnly. Your Excellency, I will go, but you also know what is going on with our army. Although there may be some progress due to my guidance, there are hundreds of people, but it is absolutely impossible to confront the enemy's army head-on. As for the state and form of the encirclement there, you can definitely tell if there is a ghost, So can you send some reinforcements? The request Jia Yan said was reasonable and reasonable. Because anyone with a discerning eye can understand that this time the enemy ambushed the baggage troops, sooner or later, not far from the marching route of Jia Yan and his troops, so everyone would immediately think that this should be a conspiracy. If Jia Yan goes to rescue him, then a conspiracy will be launched to swallow up his troops, which have a great impact on the enemy's morale. If he doesn't save him, then he can naturally deal with the baggage troops, which is also a powerful way to turn the grassland war completely towards the enemy. Therefore, no matter how he does it, this is a battle arrangement that kills two birds with one stone. It can only be said that the enemy's think tank is really powerful. Okay, I will send a force of 1,000 people with 3 top mid-level warriors from the galaxy over there, but you are definitely faster in terms of time. No matter what the enemy's plot is, Jia Yan, I need you to hold on for at least half an hour. If you can do it, I will order the troops to go out immediately. I can do it. Half an hour, it should be fine. Jia Yan nodded, and then a hint of solemn thought appeared in his expression. In fact, he has a new backup plan. If the battle reaches an irreversible point, his own safety will definitely not be a problem. Of course, the premise of everything is that there is no domain lord level in this attacking team. Presumably, in such an operation, every domain owner would not come if they were seen dead. Jia Yan believed this. What's more, even if the territory lord comes, Jia Yan also thinks that as long as he is given a certain opportunity, he will have a chance to escape. It was not the first time that he had escaped from the hands of the territory lord, it had even been done several times, so even in that situation, Jia Yan felt that there would not be a big problem. Well, I'm looking forward to your good news. After saying this, the giant tree creature closed the communication. Jia Yan's eyes flashed with brilliance. Then, without thinking, he sat up from the chariot, and then the orders from him began to be conveyed around the chariot array. More than half of the 500 soldiers are recruits, but they can be considered to have combat experience. However, they have not practiced according to Jia Yan's joint combat method. They have witnessed the veterans' previous battles to deceive the enemy, so this time it can be said that it was their first battle, but they had to face such a terrifying first battle at the beginning. Even Jia Yan felt a little sad for these new recruits. It's just that the battle is imminent, and for Jia Yan, this is already something he must do. No matter how you think about it, this is just a battle that seems to have a certain chance. Moreover, if you don't fight, then the battle at the main battle barracks will be in great danger. If the main force is defeated, then their glorious army will, you know what kind of blow you will suffer next, it will definitely be more painful. In this case, Jia Yan would have no choice but to go. Besides, he is certain. Okay, you have all read the information, now let's get started. Jia Yan, an increasingly prestigious officer, has become the de facto absolute leader of this so-called Jia Yan force. Even several galaxy-level beings who were nominally able to suppress Jia Yan, they have all become Jia Yan's crazy fans. He will do whatever he says, even if he wants them to die, they may not look back. Because under Jia Yan's hands, they enjoyed a reputation that they had probably never enjoyed before in their lives. The soldiers around them admired their unit and regarded them as legends, which made everyone up and down, including these galaxy-level powerhouses, all felt something different. So, if Jia Yan wants to do something, they will definitely do it. Boom. Not long after, these 500 soldiers opened about 100 chariots and began to move like flying. Find the bookstore. This battle formation of chariots mixed with chariots was Jia Yan's final battle method based on his yin and yang dao advantages. In fact, it is a bit difficult for Jia Yan to build such a force, because he doesn't know much about military affairs in the first place, and he also has to use his yin and yang dao to study the combat weapons in this North Star. As well as the exercises practiced by the soldiers, this is a huge project. But this process was also a huge improvement for Jia Yan. After understanding the soldiers' training methods and studying a lot of military intelligence, he was able to fill up his sponge with information about the training in the entire North Star, at least in the area where the master controlled it. As a result, in this process, he became clearer about his own yin and yang path, and at the same time he also learned a lot more about Bai Yuxing. If you go out and tell others that he is a semi-northern giant native creature, you can fool them. Of course, Jia Yan did not want to regard himself as a native creature of the semi-northern superstar, nor did he bother to do so. Sir, the next battle may be a tough one for us, but it is also the time for us to show the combat effectiveness of Mangyuan Jiayan's troops. I invite the first one to fight. That's right. Jia Yan received communications from the galaxy-level powerhouses one by one. They were in the military vehicles in front, but when executing the order, no one could get out of the military vehicles, so they all called communications and started a meeting with Jia Yan. Please fight. And Jia Yan also agreed to their fight one by one. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2264. Each of these galaxy-level beings has certain means of self-protection. For Jia Yan, it is time for them to show their combat effectiveness and loyalty. Generally speaking, Jia Yan is quite satisfied with the performance of his subordinates in the past few days. But presumably, the idea of competing for credit is still dominating them. The original combat effectiveness of these galaxy class is not too high, but after using Jia Yan's joint fighting method, especially for the galaxy class, after improvements, each one of them is like a chicken blood, and it always feels like everyone is invincible. Not their rival. Moreover, several of them were assigned ice and snow explosives, and Jia Yan even taught them how to make these ice and snow explosives explode. In this way, no one but Jia Yan himself could cause problems with the ice and snow explosives. In addition, when they got these things, it was like the icing on the cake. They used ice and snow explosives with Jia Yan, which were just a little less powerful. It could be said that they were directly several clones of Jia Yan. So they couldn't restrain themselves at all, and wanted to go to the battlefield to kill the enemy, so that everyone could understand that Jia Yan's troops were truly worthy of their reputation. Lord Jia Yan, there are indeed sounds and reactions of fighting 10 kilometers in front of our troops. Shall we go down and join the battle? Go ahead and fight according to the arrangement just now. Of course, you must establish communication connection with our people first, otherwise no one will know where there is a trap. Yes. The 52nd unit transporting supplies was really in bad luck today. The number of people in their army is actually not that small, there are 1,500 creatures, but the problem is that there are not many strong ones among them. Besides, the soldiers have all been assigned to the baggage team, how good can they be in quality? As a result, being surrounded by the enemy's sneak attack army, they suddenly fell into a disadvantage and were in danger of crumbling and then being annihilated. Damn it, this enemy is definitely not an ordinary army. We didn't even force out their main force, and they were almost wiped out. Haven't the reinforcements arrived yet? No, sir. It is said that a very powerful force will come, but we asked, but the superiors refused to tell us. What a powerful force! The enemy's force is so terrifying. Unless we pull part of the main force over, we will definitely be doomed. Ha ha ha, God is really going to destroy us. There is no way to save us. Not only the soldiers in this supply unit lacked military qualities, but also the commanders of the troops did not have military qualities. At this juncture, they actually said discouraging words to their subordinates, and even said ugly words, saying that they were going to completely annihilated. This disappearance spread all of a sudden, and the morale of the entire baggage force was greatly affected. Puff! A strong man resisted the ammunition attack of the baggage troop defenders and broke into their position in an instant. With a sudden punch, a chariot of the baggage troop was shattered into pieces. It turned out that this strong man was a galaxy-level strong man, and destroying a chariot in one blow was as simple as a daily routine for them. The enemy's strong men are coming, we will definitely lose, run away. Run away. We don't care about weapons or anything like that. Our own lives are gone. Why do we care so much? That's right, run away. The front line on this plain front cannot be maintained. Our plain troops are just here to resist the enemy's footsteps for a while. Run away. If you don't run away, you will die. A well-known soldier in the baggage unit could no longer bear such strong psychological pressure, and for a moment he wanted to leave the battlefield and become a deserter. Although the fate of deserters is usually very miserable, it is better for them to leave it alone than to die now. Besides, if this battle goes wrong, who can pursue so much? But before they could turn this action into a large number of soldiers and execute it together, suddenly, in the communication tank, news came that surprised everyone, even ecstatically. The reinforcements are coming. Don't worry, everyone, we are saved. The reinforcements are actually Jia Yan's troops. What? Reinforcements are coming, and they are Jia Yan's troops. Is it the Jia Yan unit that suddenly became famous some time ago? Ha ha ha, it's actually Jia Yan's army. Let me tell you, I don't believe in other armies, but I still believe in this Jia Yan's army. Little guy, hold on for a while longer. The brothers from Jia Yan's army are coming. If they see us all disperse, wouldn't it be a disgrace to our army? Yes, although the brothers in Jia Yan's army are powerful, the people in our supply army are not cowards. When the specific news of reinforcements came from inside the communication tank, everyone was excited. The name of Jia Yan's unit is simply thunderous to the entire war zone in the grassland. If anyone doesn't know the name of Jia Yan's troops, then he would not be a warrior in the current grassland war zone. After all, a unit that can hold off a sub-main force of the enemy for a long time with a few hundred troops is no longer a force. Combat power can be described as existence. Such a unit has extremely strong combat effectiveness. There are even rumors that if Jia Yan's unit was not dragged by an enemy's main force of thousands of people, it might have made greater combat achievements on this battlefield. Of course, they didn't know that if no one was chasing him, Jia Yan would probably immediately issue an order to hide himself. He came to the battlefield to get some credit and slowly improve himself, not to gain a sense of presence. As for his current reputation, it was really because outsiders praised him too much. For Jia Yan, it was a bit troublesome. But now, the situation has developed to the current point, and he will not complain. Besides, after putting so much pressure on myself, everything seemed to be in fast forward. The results of one of his researches and ideas and inspirations emerged one after another like a fountain. Of course, this does not mean that Jia Yan has made progress under so much pressure. Everything is just that he has been at Biostar for so long, has experienced all kinds of things, and then combined with countless thoughts and ideas, and his own progress bit by bit, finally evolved into what it is now. The war did help him, but it only accelerated everything and made many ideas and inspirations suitable for fighting. As for whether Jia Yan could have made such rapid progress without this battle, and whether he could have thought of so many ideas suitable for war, I am afraid Jia Yan can't think of the answer, because that is not true, but he believes in himself. Even if he doesn't, there is no war in the battle. Presumably he will progress to what he is now in the future, but it will be slower, and then he may not have so much actual combat experience. Sir, the baggage troops have been caught in a bitter battle and seem to be on the verge of collapse. We have informed them of our intelligence and data, and they have also sent intelligence of the enemy. I wonder if we will join the battle group. Okay, after analyzing the intelligence, join the battle group. Every battle group will check the equipment that is ready for battle before the battle, especially the things I gave everyone. Don't go to the battlefield and find that you don't have it with you. What the hell? Don't blame me, especially the new recruits, you have to give good orders. My lord, I will give you your instructions. At this end, after the intelligence and interface orders of the baggage troops were obtained, Jia Yan issued an order to the most powerful galaxy-level adjutant among his subordinates. The adjutant was still very qualified. When Jia Yan's order was given, he turned and left. The entire Jia Yan unit, compared with the initial feeling that it was hastily formed and only came to support this grassland war zone, which seemed very unprofessional, has long been completely new and transformed into a different look. Just like the elite. Not long after, these elite soldiers from the ice and snow area began to ride in military vehicles one by one, lightly packed, and went into battle. They were completely excited, worried, and extremely excited. Especially the new recruits, after learning that they were coming to join the Jia Yan troop in the Yangming grassland area, they felt both honored and a little worried. After all, they had just joined this troop and didn't know where they were. It's not possible to do well, and I don't know if this force, which is fighting on a very large scale and with high intensity, can make them return to their homeland of ice and snow alive. No matter how much you think about it, time will pass and what should come will come. Brothers in the military vehicles, prepare according to the pre-war training. Everyone fires a gun and goes out. Yes. Boom. When their highly maneuverable troop with chariots made a leisurely sound, cut through the sky, and flew over the chariots, fierce firepower started in the first chariot. The first soldier aimed at the enemy below, fired a shot, and then jumped out of the vehicle. Then it's the second person's turn. This is the unique battle mode Jia Yan came up with. Every soldier will fire a cannon before getting off the vehicle. Whether it is accurate or not is one thing, the other is to allow each of his subordinate soldiers to feel the feeling of fighting in advance before getting off the vehicle. In addition, the artillery fire of military vehicles is light and the rate of fire is extremely slow. After calculation, you will know that it happens to be the speed of a well-trained soldier jumping down, so there is no waste of firepower. Besides, although there are some inaccuracies, but there are so many enemies, and every soldier has been trained in firepower. No matter how inaccurate it is, there is a certain limit. Therefore, the effect of such a continuous fire is still good. Down, 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 hurry up. After one soldier jumped out of the military vehicle, he and the other members who came behind him instantly formed a formation in mid-air, and then a strange sense of power formed on them. Boom. Boom boom boom. At the same time, the sound of artillery shelling suddenly exploded inside the enemy troops in the lower part of the combat zone. Before the enemy's large force could recognize what was coming from the sky, another earth-shattering blow was heard. It turned out that a group of members of Jia Yan's troops formed a unique team. They began to attack the enemy troops below in groups from the air, either using their joint brainwave power to bombard them, or using firepower weapons to sweep across the enemy troops. The army suffered heavy casualties in an instant. What? This is Jia Yan's troops. They are really here. So strong. Is the entire army so terrifying? There are only a few hundred people. It's terrible, it's really terrible. An army of several hundred people actually produced a bombing effect of thousands of people. Oh my God, I can't even imagine the horror of this Jia Yan army unless I witness it with my own eyes. Below, both the enemy and ourselves showed frightened expressions at the sudden arrival of the light cavalry troops. Many enemy soldiers were killed and injured under the precise strikes of Jia Yan's troops. The sudden attack by Jia Yan's troops seemed to have really caused a large number of casualties to the enemy troops below. But the problem is, this casualty did not last long. The entire enemy force seemed to have been prepared for a long time. After the first round of bombing and sneak attacks, the troops below all showed their strong defense capabilities against the enemy forces coming from above. The empty artillery fire began to shoot towards the sky. This is the true face of this enemy army. They came just to deal with Jia Yan's troops. Both sides understood that was a conspiracy. Jia Yan had already thought of this before he went out, but he still came. The enemy also understands that Jia Yan must know their original purpose, but they have nothing to worry about. After all, there is not that much time for Jia Yan to react in a targeted manner, so since Jia Yan dares to come, he must accept their ferocity. Targeted strikes. Ha ha ha, it is indeed Jia Yan's army. Isn't this army the legendary army in the grassland war zone known as the Master of Power? Then let me see, who is more powerful with just a few hundred of you, or thousands of our elites. That's right, Jia Yan probably didn't expect that the two major coalition forces on our side hated him to the core. This time, the ones who came were actually the real elites pulled from the main battlefield, and the trailing troops behind him, his troops have already passed their breath, and as long as he stops, the troops behind him will suddenly accelerate and surround him. In this way, attacking from both sides, the legendary troops, with only a few hundred people, will definitely be annihilated here. Jia Yan, I would like to see how you can escape on your own if your troops are gone, or in other words, even if you escape alone with great strength, how can you stand in this place of power? Stop, I heard that you are an alien visitor, will I be able to invite you when the time comes? Ha ha ha, if so, then you are a friendly force. Hey, our force has also thought about inviting Jia Yan. Your Excellency, please don't rush in first. Having such a strong person who can lead an army will be even more powerful for any force. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2265. Fair competition, but the person who controls the power does not know how to judge people. Such a powerful commander is allowed to lead a troop of several hundred people. If it were replaced by our force, he would have been the leader of a troop of at least 1,000 people. Such a pity. Boom. Whoosh. In the sky, from time to time, terrifying rays of light come from below, bombarding the tanks above or on the military vehicles, causing injuries or even damage to these combat equipment. Fortunately, most of the soldiers in Jia Yan's unit had already got out of the tanks long before that, and things like tanks and military vehicles are not so easy to explode. Therefore, before the actual crash, the tanks and military vehicles' drivers inside can fly out and escape. The remaining number quickly flew into the sky, rising to 20,000 to 30,000 meters in one breath, so that attacks from below could no longer reach them. Sir, they really took precautions against us? What should we do now? Don't worry, our training is enough and our strength is enough. You have to believe in yourself. Jia Yan listened to the responses of his subordinates and felt a trace of worry in the hearts of these soldiers, so he smiled and said to all the soldiers, and then he issued an order, that is, they are the real Jia Yan troops' high-end combat power, start fighting. The strength of the entire Jia Yan team's soldiers may also have improved, especially after they used the combination of positive and negative forces, their combat effectiveness has been significantly improved, but this has also raised their combat effectiveness to what it was before. 1 or 2 times of that, any more would be difficult. But when the masters also take action, or even when these masters hold the positive and negative explosives given by Jia Yan, the problem is different. You must know that except for Jia Yan himself, the other 3 galaxy-level powerhouses formed a team of 3. It happened that 2 teams all used the positive and negative forces to join forces, and they also had the positive and negative explosions given by Jia Yan. The combat effectiveness of these 2 teams is really not afraid of the average mid-level peak fighting type of galaxy. After all, they can't defeat them, so they can throw away explosives. Jia Yan really hemorrhaged a lot of money to win this battle. Each galaxy-level team was given 12 explosives, that is, everyone has 4. This quantity is a bit more than the positive and negative force explosives he consumed during the battle. Ever since, when Jia Yan issued an order to let the high-end combat effectiveness begin to decline, and a number of high-level combatants in the military vehicle were killed, and in cooperation with other soldiers in Jia Yan's unit, they began to carry out battles and air strikes. The battle situation, this is the time when the Jia Yan troops has truly entered. This is also the real strength of Jia Yan's troops. What's going on? Why are those 3 galaxy classes flying around together? It seems that their combat effectiveness has improved. Our weapons, our anti-aircraft weapons, are specially used to ambush Jia Yan's troops. Why are they ineffective against them? Damn it, the combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops is even stronger than rumored. Especially for these powerful ones, it's just a matter of the galaxy-level team working together to make them strong. Those teams of star-level players actually have a hint of galaxy-level power after joining forces. How can we fight like this? You know, there are more galaxy-class people in the North Star, but this is also in terms of population. What's more, the galaxy-class people who join the war will not be willing to join the war without much reward. Therefore, in the war, there are not many real galaxy-class ones. What's more, this is just a local ambush battle, and the number of galaxy-class battles definitely cannot be used too much. If too many are used, it will have a great impact on the overall balance of the battle. As a result, Jia Yan's troops actually found a way to make the more than 20 star-level warriors join forces to fight. When each one of them had a combat power similar to that of a galaxy, the enemy soldiers below were all dumbfounded. It's like adding several galaxy-level combat capabilities for no reason, which is a huge damage to this war. Boom. Another group of star-level experts, using the 3-person combat rule, charged down together, and then bombed a group of anti-air weapons. Then each of these weapons exploded. The weapon was destroyed, and a group of soldiers around it died on the spot. When the powerful team of Jia Yan's troops began to show their majesty, at the same time, the enemy's anti-air weapons ambush at the bottom turned into scrap metal one by one. The team of ordinary soldiers of Jia Yan's troops, who were just a little bit depressed, instantly looked like after taking an injection of activating agent, everyone suddenly felt empowered. Ha ha ha, the adults are taking action. I knew that our training has such a strong effect. These adults are practicing every day. Why is it ineffective? Oh my god, these stellar and galaxy level adults are so terrifying when they join forces. If we can reach the galaxy level, no, as long as we reach the stellar level, wouldn't it be possible to join forces and have such combat effectiveness? Brothers, we must practice well. Haha, yes, but before that, we have to win this battle first. Let's see, our team's achievements will definitely be great. Kill. Ordinary soldiers are said to be ordinary soldiers. In fact, after the replenishment, there are no very low-level soldiers in Jia Yan's army. Not to mention the sky level, even the starry sky level is much less. The so-called ordinary soldiers in general, they all started at the venerable level, or even at the semi-star level. So they joined forces, and the combat power of each team increased sharply. Even because Jia Yan uniquely taught them the powerful joint defense method of Yin and Yang Dao, the defense power of these teams was even more frightening. It is difficult to kill them, so each of these teams is like killing tofu, killing the strong ones who are at the same level as them, and even often kill the enemy beyond the level. This is where the cowhide is broken. Damn. Jia Yan's troops, are they really so scary? This is our support force. Just now I saw that this enemy army was ambushing Jia Yan's troops, and I was extremely worried. Now I see that no matter what kind of ambush he has, Jia Yan's troops can do it. It's easy to deal with. Don't underestimate yourself. Without our participation and help to relieve some pressure, Jia Yan's troops would not be able to fight so easily. Come on, everyone. Yes. The strength of Jia Yan's troops also gave the baggage troops below a great fighting capacity. At least they no longer wanted to escape. Jia Yan's troops began to fight the enemy from the front, and they began to struggle with the enemy below. Not to mention, there were many of them, at least more than Jia Yan's troops. Under the harassment of such a large number of troops, they were held back. It absorbed a lot of enemy troops and gave Jia Yan's troops above them more room to exert their energy. However, when the battle was in full swing and there were not many accurate results yet, a message from a correspondent was conveyed to Jia Yan, who was flying in the air without taking much action. Has the army that has been biting us from behind finally arrived? I knew that this army would definitely come to interfere. Jia Yan was as cold as ice and showed no signs of surprise. After all, that army has been killing them in the back, and it can be said that they have always hated their army. The leader of this pursued force must be a good soldier. They have been chasing Jia Yan. It is not that Jia Yan has not thought of a way to devour this force of more than 2,000 people in one go, at least we must find a way to make the opponent disperse, and then give them a devastating blow at any cost. But firstly, he was afraid of attacking this unit and causing the entire enemy army to come to deal with him, Jia Yan. Secondly, the commanders of this unit had very good tactics. Even if they sometimes scattered the team, they all stayed behind. It opened a little backdoor and didn't give Jia Yan much chance of scoring. Today, they finally had a chance. Jia Yan, on the other hand, is also ready to go all out. After all, he has come to rescue this baggage force today. With this kind of combat effectiveness, he is tantamount to telling the world that the combat effectiveness of his Jia Yan troops is terrifying. Now that that's the case, why not stop at nothing, show your maximum strength, and see if you can solve this group of long-term enemies behind you once and for all? The big enemy from behind is coming. Get ready and allocate part of your strength to deal with the new enemy. Be careful. They are prepared for our previous fighting methods. They will not be easy to deal with. But our new display they can't deal with it, so don't be too afraid. Yes. Each member of Jia Yan's army responded loudly. At the moment, they no longer had any fear or worry. In this one-sided crushing battle, they became as powerful as a rainbow, and their confusion and worries were gone. Moreover, this force has been fighting with the troops chasing from behind. Everyone knows something about the enemy force behind them. Many people may even think that the force is not strong enough. If Master Jia Yan hadn't been saying that there was no need to cripple this army, someone might have crippled the army that had been chasing them for a long time. But today, they don't have to cover up anymore, they can cripple them if they want. How could they have any reason to be unhappy? Bear. The front is Jia Yan's troops. You have been thinking day and night about how to deal with them. Now is the stage where you can show off. Don't worry about their swimming ability. They will not escape today and cannot escape. After all, they want to be rescued. Let's let them understand that they can't save anyone. Show all the battle plans you have studied recently. Call out. A force of more than 2,000 men and horses, more numerous than either side on the battlefield, came quickly. Every member of this unit is dusty, and the vehicles have not been cleaned for a long time. It seems that the appearance is very similar to that of Jia Yan's unit. Obviously, this unit also has strong field combat capabilities. Moreover, it is the unit that has been chasing Jia Yan's troops for a long time. Presumably, they have many ways to deal with Jia Yan's troops. Under the current situation, Jia Yan's troops cannot use the previous fighting method of fighting and escaping, because in this way, the entire army will be annihilated, and the weapons and equipment will fall into the hands of the enemy. In this way, the combat effectiveness of the two major enemy forces will be stronger. As one goes against the other, our troops in this grassland are likely to directly fail. Therefore, Jia Yan's troops will not retreat as usual unless they have no other choice. All the members of this approaching army understood this, and even believed that if Jia Yan's army could not escape as before, then they would definitely win. After all, in their eyes, this unit seems to be very famous, but since meeting them, they have only used some sneak attack tactics along the way. They seem to be very powerful, but they have never dared to face them in a decisive battle. The name of the Mouse Force is the nickname given to Jia Yan's troops by the enemy. Of course, they did not deny the combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops, because if they were not sure about the combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops, then Jia Yan's troops would give them a fight. Even though they had won every game, they still dared to deny the combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops, so what did their own combat effectiveness mean? But calling Jia Yan's troops a rat army shows that they have a certain degree of strength. Moreover, Jia Yan's troops are really in front of them and have been escaping. Today, the rats will no longer escape. They can brazenly engage in a final decisive battle with all the rats in this rat army to see where this rat can escape. 2,000 people are facing up to 500 of you. There are even more than 1,000 of our troops attacking you. Your Jia Yan troops will definitely have no chance of escaping. The enemy's main adjutant, who was also the official in charge of this unit's special effort to capture Jia Yan's unit, looked extremely excited at this time. Although there is another baggage troop on the flank of Jia Yan's army to help, but how could such a combat-capable baggage force, seemingly numbering 1,000 people, be regarded by this adjutant? There seemed to be 1,000 troops, but in fact, there were only 700 left. Moreover, they were not many strong people, and they suffered a lot of injuries. In comparison, the 2,000 reinforcements were only 200 men are needed to eliminate the remaining combat strength of this baggage force. And they don't need to take action, they just need to go all out to deal with their old rival Jia Yan's troops, and let the friendly troops who had previously ambushed and attacked to deal with the baggage troops. Are they coming? This enemy army is still looking down on our Jia Yan troops as before. A galaxy-level powerhouse, he is also the lieutenant whom Jia Yan himself trusts in Jia Yan's army. Looking at the group of enemy tanks coming from afar, he sneered. This is not the first time that the two sides have dealt with each other, and in order to give all the galaxy levels a chance to practice joint tactics, Jia Yan once sent out all the galaxy levels to faintly use the joint tactics to fight with the chasing troops behind him several times. Battle. High-speed text hand-typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2266. Although every time, they were divided at the touch of a button, each of them had a real fight with the enemy. They had long been complacent about these, thinking that they could definitely suppress the enemy's sub-main force of Jia Yan's troops. Show a little color and see. Don't worry, before they get close, adjust your fighting spirit. By the way, if you can deal with some of the enemy forces at your feet, deal with more of them. Otherwise, it will be a bit difficult to fight them while distracted. Jia Yan, on the other hand, said this to all his subordinates calmly. Yes. With his words, no strong person would dare to have other ideas. In Jia Yan's army, Jia Yan's words are like heaven and an imperial edict. At present, before the reinforcements behind the enemy troops arrived, the 2,000 troops who had been chasing Jia Yan's troops arrived. Jia Yan's troops seemed to have not seen them, and continued to move toward those below. The enemy ambushed the troops and launched an attack. This time, there is no need to wait for a more devastating attack. The enemy troops below are said to be elite, but there is still a certain gap between the current combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops. Moreover, there are also those supply troops assisting in the operation. The bigger reason for the collapse is that friendly troops are about to arrive. Just when they thought they could breathe a sigh of relief, Jia Yan's troops actually stepped up their attack. As a result, the troops of this army were defeated like a tide. Run away. These Jia troops are like crazy. Ah, people from Jia army, didn't you see? There are troops coming behind you that have been chasing you. You don't deal with them but come to kill us. Are you stupid? Damn it! When the enemy, who was famous for sneak attack on the troops, discovered that Jia troops did not care about the incoming support troops and attacked them directly, their mentality completely collapsed. Every biological soldier began to stop attacking the surrounding enemy troops, regardless of whether they were from Jia troops or the baggage troops. In short, they drove their cars and prepared to leave here. As a result, a sense of crisis spread throughout the war. Although for a while, this force of more than 1,000 people ambushing the baggage troops still had a certain fighting capacity, it had become nothing to worry about. Very well, officers of the baggage troops, you come to deal with this defeated army, and we will turn back to deal with the new enemy. Yes. When Jia message reached the ears of the members of the baggage troop below, a commander in the baggage troop responded quickly. Although at the beginning, he was actually somewhat unconvinced by Jia, because everyone was biased, and the troops under his command were more numerous than Jia's. Why should he be convinced by Jia? But now, at first glance, he is a far different commander than Jia, so why can't he be convinced? As a result, the officer quickly promised to help Jia solve his worries. Because he understood that the scattered and ambushed enemy troops were no longer a concern. The remaining few hundred troops on their side should be able to prevent them from entering the battlefield again. As for Jia, they will soon have to deal with a larger enemy force. This enemy army was still Jia's old rival. It had always refused to deal with Jia's troops and chased and killed half of the grassland. The two sides could be said to be enemies and were extremely jealous when they met. There will definitely be a good fight. They, the baggage force, can just watch the show. They should not join in the fun of such a high-level battle. Very good, my soldiers, turn back. Let's kill the enemy troops behind us together. These guys have been chasing us. Everyone has fought with their troops. Now it's time for us to take revenge. Do you have the confidence? Have. When Jia gave the order and had a head-on confrontation with the enemy army that was coming with support and was preparing to outflank Jia's troops, the entire members of Jia's troops roared like crazy. You know, they were really angry after being chased by the army behind them for so long. They especially knew that they had such fighting power, but they were chased by the troops behind them who knew nothing and didn't seem to have much better fighting power than them. How could they not be angry? Of course, they were also grateful to this unit. After repeated sieges and pursuits, every member of Jia's unit went to the battlefield and fought like a training battle with the enemy. The casualties were not serious. This resulted in a great stride forward for Jia's troops. So if you really want to talk about it, you have to thank this enemy army. The best thank you gift is to show them how powerful Jia's troops have made in recent days. These fools from Jia's troops actually came back to fight with us? Haha, are you stupid? Do you think we are the kind of people from other troops who don't understand Jia's troops? They are dead. We understand them just as they understand us. And our biggest advantage is that we have enough people. How dare you turn around and fight us? It's dead. The reputation of Jia's troops will end today. In their place, our troops who destroy Jia's troops will become famous. They will replace Jia's troops and become the most popular people in this grassland war zone. People's expressions change and they become a powerful force. Jia's troops, your legendary career ends here. Among the 2,000 enemy troops that were besieged, one by one the enemy's strong men actually dared not to escape when they saw Jia's troops, let alone execute the roundabout tactics they had always implemented. But turned towards him, turned around and killed him. Suddenly, every member of the sub-main force felt that Jia's troops were stupid. Don't underestimate Jia Yan's army. Every member of this army has strong combat effectiveness. Yes. Others may look down upon Jia Yan's troops, but the territory lord's adjutant in this unit does not look down upon them at all. You know, he used extremely powerful pursuit skills, but he did not defeat Jia Yan's troops. In the pursuit and escape battles, Jia Yan's troops felt that they were growing extremely fast. But this time, he felt a hint of crisis, so he turned to his superiors and came up with the concept and ideas for this battle. He got the personal approval of the lord of the territory, and then executed this battle. In other aspects, the execution has been very good. The problem is that the ambush and attack troops were defeated so quickly after attracting Jia Yan's troops. It is clear that their combat effectiveness is also small and elite. So it can be seen that Jia Yan's army is indeed well deserved. As for their unit, which has been chasing Jia Yan's troops, they say they have been suppressing Jia Yan's troops, but in fact they have never fought with all their strength against Jia Yan's troops. Therefore, he was still extremely cautious. One by one, the subordinates woke up from thinking that the members of Jia Yan's army were stupid. Thinking about the battle results of Jia Yan's troops and their previous battles with their own sub-main force, these soldiers felt ashamed. They had never defeated Jia Yan's troops even once. Even because of their pursuit, they suffered heavy casualties. They had to replenish their troops several times to ensure that the number of troops was intact. How dare you underestimate Jia Yan's troops? So arrogant. Now, the members of this group of enemy troops no longer look down upon the members of Jia Yan's troops. Kill. In an instant, the elite enemy army became calmer and more vigilant. Without any tricks, they fought against the incoming Jia Yan troops. Jellyfish strongmen from Jia Yan's army. Very good. The last battle with you didn't result in a winner. Let's see how I kill you this time. Why are there two of you? How despicable. A junior galaxy-level powerhouse saw a jellyfish-like galaxy-level powerhouse among the powerhouses that Jia Yan's troops were charging toward, so he rushed forward with bright eyes. Because this jellyfish creature was an existence that he had fought before, and his strength was overwhelming the opponent, so he wanted to choose this strong man with a little bit of background to fight. What I didn't expect was that beside the jellyfish creature, the junior strong man from the galaxy who was acting together with the jellyfish creature did not go to the opposite side of the other strong man from the galaxy to catch and fight. Instead, he worked with the jellyfish creature. Rushed towards the strong man. He suddenly became frightened and quickly chose to retreat. And while he was retreating, he seemed to have thought of something. Your joint strategy can actually be used on the galaxy class. This strong man is also smart, because he has long known that among Jia Yan's troops, there is a joint fighting method that can be used by low-level strong men, and such a fighting method has never been heard of. They also believe that it should be impossible for galaxy-level powerhouses. But what he never expected was that when these two strong men came to kill together, the strong man who rushed out instantly felt that the two masters of the rushing force, Galaxy Elementary, including the jellyfish creature, were inside. The two of them seemed to have some kind of vague connection. This is obviously the feeling of joining forces to fight. He suddenly felt that his head was as big as a drum, and he was so frightened that he retreated repeatedly. You must know that they had already understood the joint tactics of Jia Yan's troops before. Each warrior after joining forces seemed to have increased by a level out of thin air. Generally, it is 3 people joining forces, or even 4 people joining forces. This kind of combat effectiveness is more powerful than the strong ones one level higher. To deal with the same level, it is like crushing. The powerful combat effectiveness of Jia Yan's troops can be said to be one. Most of it comes from this fighting style. If this joint strategy could be used on the Galaxy class, even if it could only be done in pairs, it would make them feel frightened. He may not be able to deal with a Galaxy-level powerhouse in the first place. If 2 giants come over, even if they don't have any joint skills, he will definitely die. So the only option is to escape. Puff. It's a pity that the two sides are very close, especially the strong man who joined forces with the jellyfish creature. He is originally a speed type. When he uses his speed, the jellyfish creature seems to be used as a speed amplifier for him. In an instant, the two powerful men suddenly approached the enemy's primary warrior of the galaxy. What kind of speed is this? Just when the galaxy-level powerhouse had time to raise his doubts, the jellyfish creature sneered and struck down hard with one of its tentacles. Go to hell and ask for the answer to this matter yourself. Go to hell. Bang. A first-level being from the galaxy couldn't even withstand a combined attack from these two creatures, and died immediately. Boom. At the same time, the winners and losers were also decided on several battlefields. Each and every one of the enemy's galaxy-level powerhouses who recognized their enemies, as well as the elite star-level powerhouses below the galaxy level, suffered heavy casualties in an instant. Every one of the enemies was filled with jealousy, and their hearts were filled with turmoil. What the hell? With the existence of Jia Yan's troops, when can the galaxy level also join forces? Moreover, on the side of the astral level, it seems that the joint fighting skills in the past were not so powerful. Why are two people of the same level now joining forces and being slapped to death? What a slap in the face, you are so strong. Don't worry, the combat power of the strong men on our side is still in the form of crushing. Don't be nervous. We are fighting against Jia Yan's troops. It is natural that they have a certain combat power. As long as you understand their methods, try to avoid them. That's good, now the strong ones have joined forces. Although we don't have such an efficient joint strategy, we don't have to worry because there are so many of us, victory will definitely belong to us. As expected of the deputy of a domain lord, that deputy instantly found a way to solve the disadvantage in combat. After his order was issued, every member of the secondary lord's army who came quickly calmed down. If the backbone of Jia Yan's army is Jia Yan, then the backbone of this army is this adjutant. Everyone knows that he is the adjutant of a domain lord and a think tank-like existence. So the words he said were extremely recognized and implemented seriously. After all, a domain lord's adjutant and think tank is overqualified to manage such a unit. Moreover, he has done a flawless job in the previous battles and executed the troops' orders. Except for dealing with Jia Yan's troops, he has a little bit of trouble. Apart from not being very impressive, the other reasons are the biggest reasons why everyone is convinced. And Jia Yan's troops are not kind people to begin with, otherwise they would not let such a domain lord's adjutant come to deal with them, so everyone can understand if they fail once or twice. At that moment, he immediately thought of a solution to the problem, and everyone started to implement it more convincingly. Huh? Reacting so quickly? The enemy's commander is indeed a good person. From a distance, Jia Yan was alone in the army. He was still worried about whether there might be a territory lord ambushing the enemy. Although it seemed that this possibility was not high at the moment, he also has to be on guard, right? High-speed text hand typing chapter list of rebirth of the giant mosquito in the starry sky.